everybody. Welcome to 372 Pages We'll Never Get Back. I am Connor Listoka, joined, as always, by Mike Nelson. For this, our 20th book, Gump and Company. Mike, how's the Gump journey going for you?
Said Gump and Company. Is that...
Gump & Co.? Well, I mean, I'm sort of distracted because I have some distressing news about what our loyal listeners, the Jackals, have been calling this book.
Oh, dear. All right. Well, let's... I'm happy to call it Gump & Co.
Okay.
Because I feel like that gives it a diminishment that it deserves.
Sure.
Like it doesn't deserve us to do the work of calling it Gump & Company.
Right.
So let's just call it Gump & Co.
You don't want to call it as they have been calling it Gumpany?
Oh, dear.
Yeah, and there's an even more distressing one that I was alerted to.
How could it be more distressing than what I've just heard?
Gump and Cump. With Cump, C-U-M-P.
Ooh.
It's not good.
No, that's not good. I understand your distress.
Yeah.
And I sympathize.
Hard to focus. Hard to sleep last night with thoughts of that running through my head.
Tossing and turning. Yeah, sure. No, I'm excited to dive into this story because it is curious. As an outsider, I had no idea. I know nothing of, as previously discussed, did not see the movie. So when I'm, when I'm meeting a new character, I am diving to the Gumpopedia to determine whether or not this was one from the movie or the book. And interesting to see how he chooses those.
Yeah, the whole thing is interesting. It's just interesting to see someone sort of just like burn goodwill to the ground. You know, there's always the cliche in the music biz about I guess any given art, but the difficult second album where you sort of, a band makes a hit, but then they're like, our fans are pigs, and they want to make an artistic statement or something. I don't think he's doing an artistic statement, but he certainly is pushing back against anything that brought him a degree of success here.
I sense that in it. There seems to be a little anger. He seems to be treating his beloved characters in a way that probably were not treated in the first book. No, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
But you also just get a sort of is picaresque the way you describe this, where it's just a series of little unconnected anecdotes. Like, isn't that is that like Don Quixote? He sort of bounds from one wacky adventure to the other, and sort of rather than being an overarching narrative.
That's true. This does seem to have a bit of serialization to it or something, or just vignettes like the. Sometimes they'll do that in a movie where you didn't realize it was going to be vignettes, and then they'll actually close the iris, down and then open up on a new story. Right. That's apparently what he's doing here.
Right, but they're all very similar. They all just have him going somewhere, bringing great prosperity and success to something, and then it ends with him being, chased out of town by people with pitchforks and in the back of their pickup truck, like, with banjo music playing.
And yes, and then the repeated beat of the newspaper stories about it. Yes. So neat. We haven't said anything about what this podcast is. Or anything. Right.
If you're listening for the first time, we are a book club where we read books that we don't expect that we're going to like, and that's to varying degrees of accuracy. But for the most part, we find some entertainment in these less good books, I guess you could say.
I'm sorry, I'm across the room, but I concur with what you said, and I'm coming back right now.
Wow!
I had the headphones on; I could hear everything.
But yeah,
taking a chance.
This is the 20th book we've read. We've read books that are substantially worse than this, and we've probably read a few that are better than this on the podcast. But we're going to have dumb sentences of the week from our listeners. We're going to have some emails from people. One of them who did a deep dive into the world of Forrest Gump fanfic, and then we have. Our own real or fanfic segment that we're going to try to trick you up on. There are some very good ones this time, so I'm eager to see how you fare.
I think if I had to do it over again, I would advise people. I didn't know this was going to be a theme. Is that he just kind of does bad jokes that if you have an uncle who was a football coach, the kind of jokes he would tell you when you were a kid, and you'd go, oh, yeah, I get it. There's a lot of those in here. And so just for fanfic, it would be interesting to just kind of write out a really, find an old joke book.
Yeah.
And just write out one of those and see if you could fool me. Because I might take the bait on that. There's times where I just go, oh, God, that line? Like literally my uncle would say that to me.
Yeah, where would you find a compendium of things that are like one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest?
Yes.
Like, baseball coach speak type of thing. Like,
right.
But like movie baseball coach. I don't even know what that would be called. Like Book of Cliches or something.
Right. Yeah. It occurred to me. I saw that the first time. There was a Pink Panther movie. You know that character, right?
Sure.
Where they just did the joke about. Excuse me. I'm having a tough time this morning. The joke about does your dog bite? And then the dog bites the person, and he goes, "I thought you said your dog didn't bite. That is not my dog."
Oh my God.
Did that entire thing, like the 5 minutes, just did that joke, and delighted my father, who couldn't believe that someone was finally bringing such artistry to the screen. But this book does the same, so my dad might have given this a thumbs up.
Wow. Well, I mean, and your dad was he was known to have some livestock around the yard, right? So he might have appreciated chapter 4. Right, which goes into the thrilling world of pig farming.
I did not expect this.
Yes.
A very, very deep dive into it.
Yeah, we might as well get into it. So
Yes.
as we left him, Forrest is on the run from the city of Atlanta and the Coca-Cola company, who had put out $1 million bounty on his head for screwing up their new Coke product in a delightful 2-chapter sequence that saw him massage a horny housewife and just create the biggest debacle of the 80s. And so we thought that there might be more of that, coming, just sort of ticking off these late night talk show monologue materials. But he actually just hopped in a truck with a pig farmer and is working on this. And unless I missed something in the 80s, this was not an actual plot line that happened. This is Groom's invention here.
Yes, I was trying to figure out what is the analog here. Was there a famous hog farmer in
Yes.
In the 80s? And I could not figure it out. So yeah, I'm assuming this is just an invention. Maybe there was talk in the air at the time, so to speak, of feedlots being a problem. So maybe this is his solution or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he gets to work there, and we were spared no details. He says that my job, I figured out pretty soon, was to do just about everything. I slopped the hogs in the morning and afternoon. Then I'd walk around with a shovel and try to get up as much of the pig shit as possible, which Mr. Mcgiver would sell to crop farmers for manure. I fixed fences and tried to keep the barn clean. Every so month, I'd load up the truck with whatever pigs Mr. Mcgiver wanted to sell, take them to market at Wheeling or wherever. So there is a $1 million bounty on his head this whole time. And I'm going to just keep pointing that out. I don't think it's going to come back and haunt us, but Mr. Mcgiver might have been, in a different type of thing. He would have seen a news report and, looked from the TV back to Forrest Gump slopping the hogs, looked back and forth, and then phoned that in. But he's just farming. He's pig farming.
Mcgiver, I have comments coming up about him, but right off the bat, he's a straight shooter because, as you just read, he sells, get as much of the pig shit as possible, which Mr. Mcgiver would sell to crop farmers for manure. And so I'm glad he's selling them manure as manure. That proves he's a straight shooter. He's not selling them like sand for manure, and they're going, wow, this does not seem like manure, but he's selling to us as manure. So
right. And he's not selling it to crop farmers being like, you guys do whatever freaky thing you want to do this. He's like, this is for manure. Yes. This is what this is for. Like, this is in the EULA that you have to use this as manure.
Yes.
And he says that this is on account of, he's trying to find food. On account of hog food is expensive. And Mr. Mcgiver says this is the main reason he cannot expand the pig farming as fast as he wants. So we have dialed out the narrative ambition from, teaching Elvis to dance or, accidentally, showing his ass to the president and stuff. We've got hog farm expansion happening.
And you would think maybe just like the hog farm is the setting for some sort of magical occurrence. It's like, no, we're going to stay right here and we're going to hog farm the hell out of this chapter. We're not going to meet any famous people. We're going to, we're going to raise a hog.
Yes.
And we're going to deal with a lot of manure.
Yep. It goes into sort of sim farm at this point in time.
Here's a line that this is my one-sentence review of Gump and Company. It's right from the... He say that all sound pretty peculiar, but what the hell, to each his own. That's my one-sentence review of Gump and Co.
Right. Larry King, if you liked it, I guess to each his own.
Yes.
He does have he says he gets a 50-cent raise because Forrest figures out that he can get slop from the army. Mm-hmm. And like their leftover wasted scraps or whatever, and then use that to feed the pigs, so for free. And he gets a 50-cent raise, which he gets then Sundays off, and he used the time to go down to the town and sort of ass around.
I took that as a note as well. Is that a thing?
Assing around?
I have never heard that.
Sort of assing around. I just enjoy that. Forrest Gump has gone from just the beloved simpleton of the movies, America's sweetheart, to just a dirt bag. We just he's sort of like if Kid Rock had an unsuccessful brother. It's amazing.
I guess so. What do you think entails his assing around?
I mean, I think that's that's walking around. He's probably chewing on one of those wheat straw type of things like Tom Sawyer. Maybe like loitering probably is a big part of it.
Grabbing a satisfying feeling stick and then sort of whacking at picket fences as he walks by.
Yes.
Is that assing around?
I think so. I think that qualifies. Maybe reading the comic books at a drugstore until the guy says either buy one or get out of here, and then he shakes his fist at you. I feel like he gets his fist shaken a lot at on town lines or something, county lines.
Yeah, right. And probably spends his, a quarter. I don't know what a bottle of pop was in the 80s, but like kind of waits, and then maybe because he's got a lot of time to kind of ass around. So maybe 2 hours into assing around, he'll then spend the money, buy the pop.
Right. Yes.
And, drink that for an hour.
Yeah. So if you have a definition of how you ass around, let us know. We'll be very curious to hear that. Get us your assing around schedule, maybe a workout plan for people who you got to do incremental stuff. You can't just go from zero to sort of assing around. You need to work your way up to that. So also tell us.
Yeah, and if you have any fanfic of other characters, great characters of literature, who you'd like to see go into town and sort of ass around for a while, that'd be a great thing to do.
Yes,
We'd appreciate that.
And it says, meanwhile, it became my job to arrange for the mess hall slop to be brought to our hog farm. Mr. Zemeckis, we would start the bidding at $10 million for this filmable property.
Oh, yes. And then we learn a lot about the system of dumping the garbage out. Mm-hmm. And we get a joke in there about because then the visiting family members think that they're feeding everyone garbage or something. Which...
Yeah, they did. They divide the garbage into separate cans marked edible trash and inedible trash.
Yeah. And it just occurred to me that Larry King might have needed to read that joke twice before he went, yes.
But then they figured out the code. It works well. It says, in a few months, our operation was working so good, Mr. Mcgiver had us buy 2 new trucks. And within a year, we had 7,081 hogs to our name. So he's spent a year. We've yada-yada'd over a year in this past paragraph.
And time is marked by the head of, do you call it a head of hogs?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Because we do get the updates on that.
Yeah.
Throughout this chapter.
I started wondering what the limits of a 2-person hog farming operation would be. I looked into trying to see how big is the average hog farm in the U.S. I couldn't find any statistics, but there was an article about going to just a huge industrial repulsive factory hog farm, which had it at around 150,000 hogs, which I think this gets up to close to that. So
yeah, I think that's the final tally is somewhere around there.
Yeah, so just at some point in time it became its own city, where it has those quote lagoons. If you've ever read about the hog farming industry, which is the city block sized pools of disgusting waste.
So who knows how many hogs we have at this point when his son shows up.
Yes.
What is his name?
Little Forest.
Little Forrest comes, and he gets just dropped off. Miss Curran sends a quick note, right? That says, I'm going to...
He's misbehaving, so he needs some time with his father.
So here's their conversation. It is the hogs, I say. We raise... that's what we raise on the farm is hogs. Oh, shit, you expect me to stay here all summer with a bunch of stinking hogs? That's the first he's hearing of it, so I just wonder what the conversation was. As Mrs. Curran packs his bag. Well, where are you sending me? Yeah, I don't know. Well,
Right.
what kind of town? Because he also did not have any idea what kind of town it was. I don't know. So I'm going to live with my dad. What kind of work does he do? Yeah, I don't know.
Right.
This is literally the first he's hearing of everything. He's dropped off in Colville, and he's going to work on a giant hog farm. First he's hearing of it.
The boy's mother and the man he presumed to be his father have died, within the past year, and his mom his grandmother is wondering why he's doing poorly in school while omitting information like, I'm sending you to slave away on a hog farm all summer. And I just liked the phrase, shit, you expect me to stay here all summer with a bunch of stinking hogs. And I was like, yeah, maybe leaving their relationship at the forest choking up and saying, is he smart, in the other book might have been a good call in terms of how we're going to perceive them going forward.
Right. It's like any sitcom that introduces a kid. It's like, we've made a huge mistake.
Yep.
Should have just left him off screen. Like, we had a kid. We'll talk about that at some other time, though.
Right. Yeah, but so they have to work out their relationship here, and Little Forrest maintains his sort of disgust with the whole operation. It says, next morning I got Little Forrest to help me slop the pigs, and the whole time he acted disgusted. I don't think he was acting disgusted. It's repulsive, horrible work. But he asks him if he wants a pet, and he picks one out of the thing called Wanda. And so this becomes a character going forward. Little Forrest walks around with Wanda. He cares for her, walks her around on a leash. And it says that he's named after an old friend of mine, which I guess is book one fan service. I'm not sure.
Wanda is the strip club, I believe, that he worked at.
Okay. Got it. Yep. Wow. So that's a slam on his former boss then.
I guess so. I look back at that. That was a very brief thing, right? Where he swept out a strip club at 3 a.m.
As the NFL's leading receiver. Right. And then he says, they take hogs up to auction in Wheeling, like giving us no time to catch our breath whatsoever. And Little Forrest like sort of gets embarrassed because they're driving hogs up and then driving back and then driving more hogs up, and they just like Little Forrest is like use the railroad to transport them up there. So he shows up and he's sort of the just becomes the brains of this operation very quickly.
Yes, and during that little interchange is where he pulls out a line from a terrible old joke.
Oh, boy.
Which I assume you didn't recognize it. He says, why don't you do it this way? And he goes, why? He goes, because you'd save time. And then Forrest says, what's time to a hog? I asked.
God.
And that's the punchline to an old and terrible joke. Almost like a Shaggy Dog joke where you try to make it longer and longer. And then that would be the punchline, like, a farmer holding the pig up to an apple tree or something and walking him from apple to apple, and then someone watching the whole thing and saying, why don't you just knock the apples down and let the pig, take them himself? It would save you a bunch of time. And he says, what's time to a pig?
Oh, all right. Well, that's that type of joke. Good when Norm Macdonald tells it on Conan, and not so good in the written form of Gump and Company.
Exactly.
Wow.
So much so that you passed it over without even recognizing it as a joke, which is completely understandable.
Yes. Great. But so the whole point is that, that Forrest is doing this, idiocy because, he's Forrest Gump, and all he does is ass around. He doesn't have any idea. But, Mr. Mcgiver's been running this hog farm for years, presumably decades, and he also didn't think to put the hogs on the train and take them up there. So it's not that Forrest Gump is an idiot going through here. It's just that everyone is sort of a dumbass in this universe, I guess.
Yeah, apparently Mcgiver does not, read any of the trade periodicals. Hey, we're shipping hogs now. Is everyone aware of this new development? Mcgiver's, he's just, hiring people that he finds running down roads and letting them take over the hog operation. And I remembered what I was going to say is that, like you mentioned, that he suddenly keeps getting days off.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a farm, so you would have to say, so I'll give you this day off, which means, obviously, I'm going to have to hire 2 more people
yes.
who only come in on the days that you get off or whatever. I just don't know how he's working that. Right? You can't stop feeding the hogs or...
True,
whatever.
yes. And then they keep escalating exponentially. He first took off Sunday, so I was like, oh, he'd been working every day of the week since then. Then he starts taking off Saturdays and Sundays as they get more money. But yeah, there's no more mention of the workers or laborers that they're hiring to make up for that, even though they're essentially running a small town at this point in time.
Right. And here's the flavor of Mr. Mcgiver that I promised you.
Ooh, thank you.
My God, Mr. Mcgiver hollers after he has looked at the drawings. This is wonderful. First rate. You deserve a Nobel Prize, young man. All right, Mcgiver. And then I'm going to skip down and we can back up. He says, the next time he speaks, he says, "This is wonderful," cries Mr. Mcgiver. "Edison, Fulton, Whitney, Einstein, none of them could have done better." "Eureka," shouts Mr. Mcgiver. "We have turned a sow's ear into a silk purse, and we are now eaten high on the hog."
Wow.
Mcgiver, a couple paragraphs later. "Fantastic, unbelievable, terrific," Mr. Mcgiver cries, leaping up. "Why, you should be in the Congress or something."
Wow, he's enthusiastic. You've got to give him that.
"So the energy costs are virtually nil," Mr. Mcgiver roars. "Why, think of the possibility." And I think you get the point about Mcgiver here. I'm not a fan, is what I'm saying.
He's constantly leaping out of his chair, having to get his hat from falling back off of his head.
Yes, he's dancing around. At one point, he actually does. Gets up and, jigs. I assume he puts his fists together between his legs and bows his legs out and rocks back and forth and goes, yee-hoo-hoo-hoo. I'm assuming.
Yes, you have to assume. I mean, that's, we all know who we're dealing with here.
Yes. So that's Mcgiver.
Well, Mcgiver's that enthusiastic because they've gone from 7,000 to 10,000 to upwards of 25,000 hogs, and at 2 pounds of pig shit per hog per day. Well, you can see where this is leading to. So, are you missing the new Coke section of the book at this point in time? Is my question. Because we are still talking about this. He is running a pig farm with his son, and we're dealing now. We're moving into the not even running the hog farm part, but just dealing with the pig shit aspect of the hog farm, which takes up the rest of the chapter.
Yes, and you peek ahead, and you're like, is he about to meet like a famous comedy duo or something, and he's going to go on the road with them?
Uh-huh.
No. He's going to continue to deal with hog farm operations.
But the way that they're going to deal with this, and what Mr. Mcgiver was so excited about, was that Little Forrest has had some ideas. He said he pulled out a composition book he brought, lays it on the table. When he opens it, damned if he don't contain some of the weirdest drawings I've ever seen. It's like, Little Forrest, this is just drawings of Knuckles' feet. Like, what are you... This is weird stuff, man. This is twisted. But, no, it's plans for his method of turning the spent... Is it Colville?
Colville is one of the towns, yeah.
Right, and it's called that because it was obviously a coal mine, but they spent out the whole... seam, so there's an empty coal seam, but what they're going to do is make the whole city run on pig shit by pushing the manure into the seam and then using that to sort of power some sort of thing by the methane's emission, which I didn't look into the science about it. You'd figure if that was possible, we'd be probably running a bunch of cities based on it now, but it might just be a sort of magical thing that you aren't supposed to question here.
Sure, and Mcgiver's response to it, muted, scratching his chin, skeptical, do you think? No, just think of it, Mr. Mcgiver shouts. A whole city run on pig shit, and furthermore, it's so simple an idiot can run it.
Mr. Mcgiver just has a guy, who just like every time he leaps out of his chair and shouts something, just a guy starts playing the jug in the background, like it's his cue, celebratory jug music.
Right. One guy's got the little the wash tub that he's thumping on. And he bounds back and forth. Mcgiver, these guys are expensive. Do you really need to take them everywhere?
We got 45,000 pigs now. We can afford a couple jug bands. A couple jug bands? We got indoor and outdoor jug band, yeah. But they also they said he has to talk to the city fathers. They came up with a government grant. Pretty soon we get all sorts of engineers and drillers and EPA people milling about the farm. I imagine the EPA people are saying, do not do this. It's going to cause infant mortality to soar. Elderly people are going to go blind if you just start like pushing this. It's clearly going to seep into the water supply. Bad news all around, but no, they're fine.
Whose idea was it? Oh, it was a child's idea. And can we see the draft drawings? Dear God, right. 1,000 times no permit, go to hell.
Yeah, he's one of those crazy prodigy kids who graduates from Harvard at 12. Oh no, he didn't even know he was coming to a pig farm until a month ago, huh?
Sure.
He was doing well in school. Oh, he was doing poorly. That's why he got sent here. Got it.
He has his own pig named after a strip club owner. Let's not build this thing.
After he tells Forrest that he should be in Congress as they've got this whole thing going on, I think they start powering barge ships via the pigs. Like Forrest also has drawn like a pig rig that's going to start transporting pigs by putting them on the top floor, letting the pig shit fall down to the bottom where it then powers like a Steamboat Willie kind of thing. And so that's the next way that they're making money. So they're sort of printing money in this whole thing, and they're running, I guess, the biggest hog farm in the country now that they're exporting hogs to all various continents too.
Right, and I think this is a huge layout. By the way, he says that they're building ships, right? Mm-hmm. Up in and he names the port or whatever,
right? Annapolis or something.
What is the upfront layout to build a ship? I have to imagine that is, I don't care how much hog farm money you got. That's a big outlay.
Sure, yeah. I mean, you always read about how the farmers making these hog farms, they're the price of pork soars, the price of the farmer's getting remains the exact same. They're like the middleman is the guy who's making the real money here. So I'm not sure what they're doing in terms of investing or who's handling that. If we wanted to get if we Riff Tracks merchandise made, if we wanted to get a Disembodio bobblehead or something, if me and you set out to do that, we'd be talking to various Chinese manufacturing things. It would take us forever, and yet Mr. Mcgiver has contracted with the biggest shipbuilders in the world, and they've got this underway within a matter of weeks.
Right, and then his neighbor drops off 4,000 head of hog, and the price of hogs goes plummeting. It's like, shit, we just built 3 ships. We're
ruined, Forrest. Yeah. But anyway, he cuts Forrest in as a partner on the profits, a third of the profits. They're all, high on the hog, as Mr. Mcgiver said, probably had been sitting on that line for a while. But then it gets time for little Forrest to go back to school, and he's sort of upset. He doesn't want to leave behind. He doesn't want to leave Wanda behind. But Forrest promises that they will, not kill Wanda. They're going to keep her on here as a brood hog. She'll be fine. And I think that it's well known that the breeding hogs on an industrial 100,000 head of hog farm have the best lives of anyone in the system.
Oh man, they're having as good a time as a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest.
Did you leap out of your chair as you said that? I hope so. And once they get back there, I think we have upward of 50 or 60,000 hogs they've bought, and they're building the things in Norfolk, just a couple hours down the road from me,
Norfolk,
where they built the thing, big Navy town, and they have become a great national enterprise, Mr. Mcgiver says, but we are leveraged up to the hilt for borrowing all the money to build the ships.
Yeah, there you go. All right. It did, maybe I knew that or whatever, but yeah, that's a huge expense.
Yeah. So this is when he turns him in to Coke for the $1 million. No, just I'm just kidding.
Oh, he actually, okay, it does get into, so at least there's some touch of reality. We had to borrow millions to build those ships and buy more land for the hog farm.
Yes.
So I mean, so there is a bank, Citibank or whatever. There's a guy comes with his clipboard and nods at the operation and goes, a couple million to build hog shit-powered ships up at Norfolk? Yes, of course. Here you are, sir.
Right. And based on
tear this check off for you.
Little Forrest's second grade invention convention sketch of how this all might work.
Yes.
And by the end of the fall, Forrest figured that we had got somewhere between 800,000 and 1 million pounds of pig shit down in the mine, and the operation is running full steam day and night. And there hasn't been like a 60 Minutes investigation yet. There hasn't been a strange kids coming to school with like flippers for hands or something based on all this. Everyone's working just fine, which, in the world of Gump Co. makes you realize that it has to be just around the corner that the disaster is going to happen. And what the disaster is going to be is that they're going to power the whole town based on this power plant they've got going.
Yes. And it's running, right?
Yeah.
Or is it just sort of they're putting it in, they're stocking it and it has to ferment or whatever?
Yeah. I think they've been powering their own. Yeah, maybe there was a big moment where they switched it all on. So I'm not sure if this is happening or not, but I guess they're just celebrating him and giving them the key to the city, I guess, at this sort of Christmas celebration that they're happening. It is Christmas time and the whole town's decked out. And so Mr. Mcgiver can't be there because he's working on the ship fleet. So Forrest goes, he's going to accept it in his honor.
Yes. And this had, to me, the picture about it of like the entire town getting their Sunday best on and getting the band and going down and putting 300 pounds of dynamite under a dead whale.
Right, yeah.
Moment
yeah. Oregon in the 70s, pretty much.
Yes, so these people are excited for the first time to have this happen. And if you don't think what does happen is going to happen, then you have never read a book before and certainly weren't paying attention here.
Yep. There was a little Forrest had always told him that there was a pressure gauge that he needed to like vent every day or something like that, maybe twice a day. And in the excitement of the whole day, Forrest has forgotten to vent it, and there starts to be some rumbles in the ground. And then he looked up at the hill where the plugged up mine entrance was, and suddenly there was this humongous explosion, a big flash of light and flames, and then kablooey, the whole thing done blowed up. And if you know the Gump & Co. universe, the people that are going to suffer most from these mishaps are someone's wife in the audience, a prominent person's wife. At the Coca-Cola riot, the horny housewife got her clothes ripped off by people and was running around in her underwear. Here we have everyone on the speaking platform was still standing there, kind of in shock or something, and it was all covered in pig shit head to toe. "Oh my God!" shouts the governor's wife. "Oh my God!" So it's pretty much always the wealthy dowager is the character who just has her clothes ripped off or gets the pig shit dumped directly onto her as she's there in her finest.
I assume she used her both forefingers to sort of scoop the pig poop out of her eye and then like gently sort of flick it off her fingers and then stare at him and go,
Yes, exactly. She's been foiled by the Rodney Dangerfield character in Caddyshack yet again.
And the beloved Sergeant Kranz, who is a movie or book? I can't remember.
I think he's the guy that he met that started giving him the Army's leftovers. So I don't think he's a.
But I think at that point he had turned around and said, "Why, it's you. We were together." And
okay, got it. Okay, all right.
And you're running a hog farm. Why, you should have become a general by now.
Got it. Okay, like yeah,
that.
Sure.
So he did know him, but this is pure Sergeant Kranz here. Somehow he'd even managed to keep his army hat on. "Gump," he hollers, "you fucking idiot." What is the meaning of this? Oh, Krantz, it's good to have you back, man.
Yeah, his Purple Heart, he's wiping the pig shit off, his many epaulets and the medals on his thing, as he calls Gump a fucking idiot. And that's right after this, nice cartoony moment of... they had a full brass band there, like would happen when you welcome someone back from World War II, and the tuba player was a strange sight as all. He just kept trying to blow his note with the tuba full of pig shit, and it looked sort of like a souffle about to get done. So that's you have to imagine that being something that's the dowager is going to wind up face down inside the tuba, with her legs kicking around and her petticoat exposed.
Right. He's a big fan of the, as we said last time, the pie eating contest, the exploding whale. He loves the assemble a big group and just throw rotted garbage at them.
Yeah.
He's a huge fan. It's enough to repeat the beat at least twice.
Yeah. I wouldn't put money against it being the last time.
Sure.
But yeah, it's essentially the last one was a riot that took over all of Atlanta. This is more of a small town, barn riot. So you've got the pitchforks are out again. Forrest is probably covered in chicken feathers at some point in time as he runs out of town. But it's the same basic thing. They chase him across county lines out into a swamp or something. The dogs are barking and helicopters searching for him. But that's how he leaves. He ends up hearing a train coming and hopping aboard.
I guess he throws the hog up in front of him into the train car.
Oh, right. He brings Wanda along with him. But yeah, he does that, I guess. And, you first, Wanda, and then he hops in after her.
And the person in the thing, so we end on a real, a Larry King side splitter. It's just a voice from inside the dark car, I'm assuming. Hog, he says, great God Almighty, I ain't had nothing to eat in a week. And then I can see this might be a long trip. Yeah,
maybe the jug band is scoring the chapter ends and the one-liners that had them.
Yep, iris closing slowly. Yep, there we go, and out.
But it's very exciting. Forrest has met what seems to be an honest-to-God, like old-timey hobo here, and that's where chapter 5 begins.
Chapter 5.
Yeah, hobo time.
More pig farming. No, wait, we fled the pig farm. Thank God. Not one of my favorites. I couldn't believe how long it was.
It just, in all things considered, this is an easy reading book. It's about as easy a read, I say, as Digital Fortress was. Just at least you could keep turning the pages, and sometimes there's, dialogue that spaces things out, but it's not even to say empty calories of a thrilling book. It's, pig farming and building up a pig farm into an inevitable collapse.
Yes, I was thinking about this in terms of, I guess you'd call this prose. I mean, you have to, right? Is that he gets around having to write really anything at all by just, his main character, as he constantly proclaims, is an idiot, his words. And so the speech is very simple. He doesn't have to get off any flowery prose or actually write. It's just like, then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. Which, it gets you off the hook. I guess I'll have to remember that if I ever have to write another book.
Yeah. We come to see that it's almost pathological, because we get to meet some characters later in the book who obviously are not, Gump adjacent idiots from Alabama, but they also talk the same way. So we'll explore that as we get to it. But before that, he's on a train with a mysterious figure who's like dozing in and on and off. Wanda is falling asleep on his lap. And then he starts talking to the hobo and says, like, where are we headed? And he says, near as I can figure, Washington, D.C., the feller says. And I just started to think about, like, who this might be. Heading to Washington, D.C., maybe to participate in some sort of shadowy cabal, Boxcar Willie?
Oh, well. Oh, your string board gets another string.
It does, yes. And,
wow.
And so if you don't know what we're talking about, there's been a long-running joke that Boxcar Willie, is he a 60s or 70s, like, sort of railroad song hobo singer?
Correct. I only know him from later in his career. I think they did one of those, like Ronco, if you remember, an off-label collection of, like late at night on Channel 9 Chicago or whatever. They would go like, Boxcar Willie, more hits than the Beatles and Elvis combined. Now get all of his hits on one album. And you'd go, Boxcar Willie. So that's my only association with him. And he looks, like an old-timey hobo. I'm sure when
Lives or something.
Yeah, when Pee Wee Herman was doing his hobo on the train, he was probably thinking of Boxcar Willie. But so he meets Boxcar Willie, who's wearing, I might say, as his face is covered with a black beard. Good, yes. When we were kids, believe it or not, a popular Halloween costume last minute was to be a hobo. Uh-huh. So you just wear, ratty old clothes, and then you'd burn a cork and scrape that over your face as a beard. And so that's what I'm picturing here. But he has an old hobo-looking hat. What are you picturing there?
It's got a, the top of it is sort of a top hat, but the top of it is sort of looks like it's been sawed off with a can opener almost, so it's flapping up, like
okay,
yeah, and then
so sort of like a I'm bad at hats, but like a pork pie hat, like a men's dress hat that's been run over by a train 1,000 times.
Yeah, the brim has been sort of gnawed on by rats, and then the top is that main thing. That not the round part of the cylinder, the end of it is flopping off of it.
Okay,
maybe there's a little nest in it or something.
Yeah, I think hobo looking.
Yeah,
that look is going to come back soon. So
by virtue of a hobo wearing it, I feel like it should be hobo looking.
Yeah,
but I have a whole bit prepared here about Boxcar Willie that I want to run down.
Good. Okay.
So the main reason that we're talking about him is because at some point in time we came across a list of lizard people, reptilian people that control the universe, from David Icke, like a proto-internet conspiracy guy.
Yes.
And so it's been a running joke in Riff Track stuff for years, to the point where I was like, what is the origin of this again? I Googled Boxcar Willie lizard person, and the first result was someone on Reddit being like, why do the guys at Riff Tracks always talk about Boxcar Willie being a lizard person? But then I kept digging, and I was like, all this, lizard people, pop culture theory goes back to this one book by David Icke called The Biggest Secret. And so I was like, I got to get to the bottom of this because no one else is trying to do this. So I went into it and I found this passage which sort of explains the whole thing. And this pays off in a bit. I promise you this. So let me just read to you what comes from here. It says, Alex Houston, rapist, pedophile, and drug runner, according to Kathy, was an entertainer, ventriloquist, and stage hypnotist who, she says, also had his mind and mouth worked by someone else, the U.S. government's mind control network. This is on page 349 of this 541-page book. She says it was his job to maintain her and Kelly in their programmed mode by following the instructions he was given, which included food and water deprivation and constant trauma. Houston used his travel to venues as a cover to transport Kathy and Kelly to their assignments, and Kathy said this introduced her to the truth about the United States country music industry and indeed the entertainment industry in general. Country music, she discovered, was used by the Brotherhood's U.S. agencies to distribute massive amounts of drugs into American society and as a cover for its mind control projects. It was these agencies, she said, which paid for the promotion and hype that turned a singer called Boxcar Willie into a country music star. Some of this promotion, Kathy says, took the form of high-tech television commercials designed to have a hypnotic effect on the viewer. You remember them decades later. He became the leader, she writes, of the country music segment of the Freedom Train, the internationally recognized code name for the slave operations of Project Monarch. The name Boxcar Willie was not selected at random, it would seem. It makes a statement about the man and his role. She names him as a pedophile rapist of mind-controlled women and children, et cetera, et cetera. He's often involved in cocaine operations controlled by government agencies and was Bill Clinton's friend. So it doesn't specifically name him as a lizard, but he is a prominent part of this conspiracy, evidently. And so,
holy cow!
So just we'll put a pin in that, and we'll come back to this in just a little bit because it all ties together, man.
Holy cow! So I just recall that there was a site where, is it David? It's just Icke, right?
I think Icke or Icke. I don't know. Icke.
Yes, it looks like Icke, but I think it's just Icke. Whatever. That he had a list of these lizard people. I'm pretty sure I found this on the internet, so it has to be true, is that he would, when he would announce a new lizard person, like we have new information, that he would fill soccer stadiums with his fans or people, waiting for the news with, I assume they have their notebooks stuffed with notes.
They were doing fantasy drafts of who it might be.
Yeah. Unified field theories are all, just flying. Can you imagine the tailgating at that? The new David Icke event? And then he would, drum roll. I assume there was a tuba player who would clean the pig shit out of his tuba. And then drum roll, and then he would announce. And, usually the list is like, of course, it's, Bill Clinton.
Every president.
Of course, it's Barack Obama. Of course, it's the Queen.
Yep.
Of course, it's the Queen Mother. Boxcar Willie was in the list. So that's what got me. That's what got me hooked. Is like, oh man, okay.
It was a list of everyone you'd expect to control the world. Presidents, world leaders, billionaires, I would say. And then Boxcar Willie was the only outlier on the entire thing that was like moderately popular hobo entertainer.
Which I guess, if you're trying to put together a good list, it does look better if you throw those things in there. They call
Star
it like
Trek style, yeah.
Yeah, like the anchor thing, where it makes it more believable. If you just are listing everyone who's famous, like Barbra Streisand, sure, that checks out. George Clooney, oh, of course he's a lizard person. Boxcar Willie, well, now I believe it, of course.
Right,
so.
yes. So that's important. Just I started thinking about Boxcar Willie. I looked into that, and then we'll move on, but I'll come back to that in a minute.
Okay, good. This is the first time we've had like a cliffhanger like that. Yes, this is great.
I don't want to oversell it, but it's intense. This, of course, is not Boxcar Willie. That would be too great. But it is his old buddy, Lieutenant Dan. Like, he leans in and he's like, "Oh, it's you, Forrest." And he's like, "Why couldn't you tell it was me?" He's like, "Well, I'm half blind now." And Dan is missing his legs, of course, but he has prosthetics that he's not wearing. And Forrest leans in he says to Forrest that you smell like shit. And Forrest says it's a long story, which we're well aware of.
Yes. And so this is the guy who stole his shrimp business.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I said shrimp.
Yes.
Shrimp, of course.
Shrimp business or shrimp business?
Shrimpin' business.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess he does tell the story. When I first heard that, I'm like, oh, wow. So he should be, he should have golden prosthetic legs, right? He stole all the shrimp money. But we learn why that is not true. But in the middle of it, we get this, where they decide they want to get something to eat. So they basically just rehash the old, boy, what have you been up to? I did this. Hey, I didn't steal your money. Sounds good. Let's go get something to eat. And here's what Dan says. He says, "Hell," Dan says, "I sure wish we had enough to go to the oyster bar.
Uh-huh.
Man, what I wouldn't give for a dozen oysters on the half shell right now." Okay. All right, I think we all understand. "Served up over crushed ice." All right. "With one of them little crystal bowls for sauce on the side." Okay, I think we all understand. Sure. "Lemons and Tabasco and some Worcestershire and horseradish." "Would you stop padding the thing with a description of oyster orders?"
Lieutenant Dan's a big oyster guy. It's
we understand how they serve them.
But he's so excited he's about to bust, and his legs begin to clatter as we go down the hallways.
Oh, I missed that.
Assateague or Chincoteague oysters, he says. Don't matter which. Even good old Chesapeake oysters will do. Hell, myself, I prefer the Pacific Coast variety. Puget Sound, Salties, or some of the Oregon state breeds. Or then down from the Gulf Coast, where you come from. Bon Secour or Heron Bay oysters. Or over at Apalachicola, Florida. They used to have some delicious mollusks. Dan was kind of getting beside himself. So that's two long, distinct paragraphs of him lusting over the oysters that they're not even going to go eat.
Do you think that this is when I kind of get the idea that does this guy like his audience? He's just tested, like, oyster pedagogy substitutes for like writing any kind of story? Just like, I'm going to burn some words here. I mean, I guess they would just go like, he's looking at the word count going, how many more oysters can I name to pad this out? I
think if anything is clear, this guy has nothing but contempt for, the Forrest Gump industry and whoever might buy this book based on liking the movie that he felt he got ripped off in. So I think it's pretty clear.
Yes, okay.
So they're in D.C., they're trying to get oysters, and at some point in time, they pick up the newspaper, which this is going to be a running gag, I guess, because the Washington Post has a page that says, "Idiot causes noxious blast in West Virginia." So I forget what the first one was, like moron causes riot type of thing.
Yes.
And they put in a long article as well, but it starts off with, "Longtime Senator Robert Byrd of West Virginia said he has seen some shit in his lifetime, but nothing compares to the humiliating experience he underwent in Colville yesterday." And Robert Byrd, as we've discussed on here before, is a favorite, and because he was on his feet, they were just wheeling him out as he would sort of go there and be like, "Where am I? The Senate, like 1950."
Yeah, and he had the foghorn leghorn voice.
Yep.
He famously would give firebrand speeches against the administration at the time and fall asleep in the middle of them, which is always slightly undercut the passion of it all. But he was our go-to old guy. You got to have.
Yeah, he was a great old guy. Yes.
Yeah.
Someone would come across a dusty skeleton in a tomb or something, and Senator Robert Byrd, how are you?
Yes, exactly.
But let me just go back to David Icke for a second.
Oh my God.
I'm
getting chills right now.
So we just read the Boxcar Willie paragraph. This is the paragraph. It is the literal paragraph before it in the book. When the slaves outlive their usefulness or their programming begins to break down, they are murdered. The so-called presidential models like Kathy O'Brien are rarely allowed to live beyond their 30th year. And when that came for Kathy in 87 or 88, she was told it was her last year of life. Fortunately, as her book explains, she and the then 8-year-old Kelly would be rescued from death by a businessman called Mark Phillips. He said he had considerable knowledge of advanced mind control techniques from his time working for the Ampex Corporation and the U.S. Department of Defense. This gave him contact with leading research scientists in the field and had access to knowledge that is denied to the mainstream psychiatric profession. Mark Phillips said he was apparently regarded as safe because of his background in security clearance, and he was approached by a man called Alex Houston for support with a business deal. Houston was now the handler of Kathy and Kelly, and he married Kathy at the instruction of her controller, Senator Robert C. Byrd.
Oh, my God.
And then it goes directly into describing how they set up Boxcar Willie as this person with Kathy and Alex and all these people at the behest, so claims David Icke, of Senator Robert Byrd. So absolutely stunning. If you've been part of the RiffTrax cinematic universe for the past 15 years, I dropped my coffee mug like the Usual Suspects guy.
Everything coming together, yes.
Yeah. And then for it to show up in Gump and Company of the thing, it's there's a chance that Groom has these undercurrents in his book as well. Who you never know.
Oh my God!
So that's the biggest secret, in case anyone wants to. We will not be reading that on the podcast because it's 538 pages of unhinged lunacy. But if anything else from this book turns up in that book, we might know there's a secret connection.
I do love that. So, what'd you say? That was like page 394 or whatever. And the terms being put out, like, so by page 200, you're kind of used to like the Golden Secret Council, and then you can nod, so those words just come tumbling up by page 400. It's like, yeah, of course it's them.
Sure, it's like reading a Game of Thrones book and be like, oh yeah, this knight of this foreign land, like he's well established, like
yes. Oh, that's nice. So the hominess in the writing and the speaking, this is the world we live in, so I guess I have to tolerate it. But this and no further when they're starting to talk about their money to go out and get something to eat.
Okay.
To go out for some cheap sandwiches soup. No, sir. No. No one on earth doesn't know how to say sandwiches.
You wouldn't consider that charming if you saw it on a menu?
Ugh, sandwich. No.
Better in your mind? All right, then Sammy?
That's terrible. I have
friends
Sandwich, who claim that that's a regional, I think maybe a Chicago thing or something. I could be wrong.
Sando?
Ugh.
Yeah, none are good.
I'll take the regional variations that are completely grinders and
definitely hoagies. Yeah,
those are all charming and for the most part I haven't run across one of them where I'm like ugh. No. But Sammy is terrible.
I've seen Sammy and Sando on menus at places that I, for the most part, respect, but it's not a good development.
No. So Sandwich fully 100% rejected by me.
Well, maybe if we get if we get like 25 more Patreon subscribers, I think that's you're going to go to the Gump Company. You can verify whether they have sandwiches.
Sandwiches.
So you can, if they don't, you can sort of berate the poor teenager who's working there if that they're not true to the book.
Yes, grab and help myself to his shirt collar and just like an inch away from his nose. I want my sandwich.
And then you get a headline in the Washington Post: "Idiot kicked out of
berates
Mall of America."
Berates sandwich vendor.
they're getting hassled by the police because they both, looked like, bums, and
Yes.
they trick the policeman into saying that Wanda is Lieutenant Dan's seeing eye hog. At this point, Wanda gave out another big grunt and then peed right on the nice marble floor. So, Zemeckis, just like make it happen. You can use a CGI hog if you need to, but just get that scene in the movie.
Yes, in the script on the side, you have to make notes of like what is an actual effect. So he's got, in red pen, like effects next to the hog pee.
One night in college, we watched the movie Blue Crush, and then we enjoyed it so much. It's a surfing movie. Then we watched all the deleted scenes, and then we watched all the deleted scenes with the director's commentary. And in one of them, the director was debating when a character was peeing, whether to make it sound like horse pee or angel pee. That was their direct words. And Zemeckis might have a decision to make when he does the post sound effects for the Wanda peeing near the cop scene.
Let me hear horse again.
Mr. Zemeckis, this isn't about the effect anymore, is it? Wanda then sort of like he feels threatened. She charges at the cop. He does not somehow just immediately shoot her dead in front of Union Station. So that's unrealistic, I think. The policeman takes off running. And then they sort of decide what they're going to do is take up residence in Lafayette Park, which is right by the White House, which I guess in the world of this book this is another thing that I had to look up, whether it was something that happened or not. There's a big homeless encampment there.
There was at the time, or
I mean, no, I know. There, for all I can tell, there was not a Hooverville or a bonus march from World War I thing that dominated the headlines in the 80s. There was something that was like a 4-month protest in 1981, but it was like 25 people. So I don't think that's what this is talking about. It didn't make the headlines the way New Coke and Oliver North did.
I mean, I was immediately thinking of the World War I
right.
protest.
Yes,
right?
exactly. That's what I was. I mean, I had to look it up to be like, when was that? The bonus army.
Yes, and and I assume that was in Lafayette Park. So I'm like, well, that's an odd thing to pull in after New Coke, but okay. I guess if we're going by word count again, maybe describe some more oysters and then give us the World War I protest.
They spent 25 cents on a red crayon and write a sign that says Vietnam Veterans Against the War. So I guess they found a place that was willing to break into a box of Crayolas and sell individual crayons the way some bodegas will do that with cigarettes.
That seems right if you are going to bust open a box. That you'll have to pay 25 cents.
Yes, right, yeah. It's like buying an individual beer out of a 4-pack or something. Right. It's always going to cost more.
That's like when we lived in San Diego, we lived in an area that was kind of a tourist area. So everything you buy, you're just like, really? I have to pay tourist prices to get a loaf of bread? Okay. It's tough.
Yeah, but these are the... I guess the bonus army prices that retailers have jacked up their crayon prices for them since there's so many bums living outside the White House. And he says Dan and Forrest set up our operation on the corner of the park, and someone told us where an appliance store was, so we can get a couple of refrigerator cartons that afternoon, which will be our homes. Forrest has to be wondering, hey, should I just go live with my son and his kindly grandmother? Like, I don't really have to be living in a refrigerator carton outside of the White House.
Right. Also, what did happen? Did we get an explanation of his money from being the star quarterback, of winning, as you said, like 20 games that one season?
Yeah, that's a good question.
What happened to that?
He was giving some of it to the grandmother to take care of little Forrest, but I don't know if they hand-waved it away or not. I don't remember.
Oh, and he did have a third of the hog business.
Oh, right.
Would have made money. I mean, I assume the explosion had some cost, but that really was up to the EPA to take care of that.
Sure.
Because if they leave the safety valve of a giant methane tank underground in the hands of a hog farming idiot, right. then it's on the EPA, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it'd be a national scandal. I assume that town is without power since their grid has been converted over. So
sure.
Yeah, but I don't know if they were so leveraged so much to build those tankers. I guess that could be the problem. Although that technology seems so valuable, it's essentially a perpetual motion machine. So
that's true. Yeah, yeah.
But they start like hanging out and just sort of protesting. Dan reveals that he didn't steal the money.
Yes, I'm sorry. I thought he did that earlier because that I would have wanted to get that out of the way quickly, but I forgot. He waits till now, and he pins it on, and fans of Forrest Gump must be wait just like we wait for a new Lizard person.
Yes.
Like, who stole all the money? If it wasn't Dan, you ready, everyone?
Yeah.
Who's not reading along? It's Mr. Tribble.
What?
Yes, Mr. Tribble is a chess instructor from the novel who was never in the film. So he's the one who did it.
A stunning reveal, I have to assume. Yes.
Imagine the joy of reading the second book.
Yeah.
And you're a fan of the movie and going, what Tribble did? Who's Tribble? Nobody knows who he
Taylor on our Patreon made an amazing video of your real or fanfic triumph and had all these celebratory scenes, Walter Cronkite like laughing and taking all his glasses. So I imagine that's what everyone was doing when they revealed that Mr. Tribble was the guy behind it. Sort of VJ Day celebrations in the street.
Yeah, the clapping of a huge crowd that starts low and then turns into a nice dull roar. Oh, it was beautiful.
And then he sort of walks around town. I guess I think he goes to the Lincoln Memorial where he's then. Maybe just Jenny talks to him at his tent too, just sort of being like, "You really blew it this time." And I thought, a little heads up if you're sort of observing this from afar. And she's like, "Well, I wasn't there then," or something like that, hand waving away. She's just going to appear to berate him, but she's not really going to offer him any guidance in terms of not screwing things up, I guess.
Yeah, she just really rehashes what he did. Like, you didn't run that pressure valve like you said you were going to do, which, you would think that would be on some sort of timer or would be an actual pressure valve that would release when the pressure got too much, like pressure valves normally do. But, so she just sort of reiterates what a dumbass he was. And in the meantime, Lieutenant Dan is kind of talking about going to Walter Reed or something, but he doesn't go yet.
Yeah, I think he had spent some time there after the war, like when he came back after his legs, but he doesn't want to go back.
Okay, all right. Anyway, Walter Reed comes up, and then so he comes back from getting berated by his ghost dead wife, I guess.
Yeah,
and sees Lieutenant Dan in some kind of argument with a man in a Marine uniform. How excited were you getting when you were trying to think of who this was? And did you have any guesses?
Well, I mean, from Fanfic, I did, just because people sent in some stuff about this last week.
That's right. This was revealed. But the excitement when he turns around, and I can see he has got picket teeth in front, and he is an officer and is carrying a briefcase. "I am Colonel Oliver North," he says to me. "And who are you gonna whip my ass?" Yeah. That is quite an introduction to it.
A major introduction to announce yourself as a full name to really hammer the point home.
Usually, like I say, if you're doing, a sitcom, I think it's always the end of a sitcom, right? When they start marching celebrities on, The Odd Couple or something comes to mind, where suddenly it's like, "Look, everyone, it's Carol Burnett, star of," and then like the audience is like, "What are you doing here at our apartment?"
Yeah. My motorcycle broke down. I'm Houston Oilers quarterback Warren Moon.
Yes. So that's what we get from him, is he turns and says his name out loud, and who are you gonna whip my ass?
Yeah, this is sort of that thing I was talking about where we start to. It took me a while to even realize it was happening, because we get to. Congressional testimony, meeting, the Ayatollah. But Oliver North consistently just talks like Forrest Gump does in terms of this. He starts saying business, and I guess the head of Coca-Cola was saying that too. So one reader, Amanda, wrote in and said that it was sort of like a drunk history, where everyone is just talking via the voice of this narrator, which is a very funny way to imagine it. But it's off-putting if you know who these people are and know that they don't talk like a dumb redneck.
It is true, and I don't think it is I don't think it's supposed to be a thing that everything is filtered through. Because, like I said, I had examples in our first episode of people talking like they would talk, but then he just kind of abandons it when he feels like
right. Yeah,
and they all sound like him now. So
I like the part where Oliver North. So I think their sign they wrote with their 25-cent crayon was Vietnam Veterans Against the War, and so Oliver North says. How come you guys are against the war? he asked the blind homeless man without any legs. He might have a grievance or two, I imagine, about what ended him up in this position.
Yes. What is your problem?
And it sort of ends with, as we described it last week, who were we talking about? The encyclopedia salesman was like the Pinocchio fox. And Oliver North sort of realizes he might have something here in Forrest Gump, and it's a very, very similar moment. He says, "You're a big war hero. You got to have some sense." And then the Colonel, he gets this real odd look in his eyes and squints off in the distance for a minute toward the White House. And when he turns back, he says, "Look here, Gump. I might be able to use a guy like you. There is something I'm involved with in which your talents could be very useful. You got to come across the street. You got time to come across the street and hear me out?" So it's another just sort of like he's like licking his lips and salivating at the idea of this rube being able to help him in his mission.
He's trying to remember, do I have a mustache that I could twirl? Does anyone remember? Because nobody really remembers much about Oliver North, do they? I mean, this was 95. How far out?
No, this was like, I thought that was like 86 or something.
No, the book. I mean,
right.
When it was published.
Right.
So using this character then, I'm trying to get an analog. I mean, he was famous for, I guess it would be like, I don't know, Kato Kalin or something, where you suddenly whip him out like, yeah, I kind of remember that. Well, surely you remember that he liked, this particular brand of sock. Like, no, I don't remember that kind of detail. Right, yeah. But that's what we're getting into here is like very granular detail about a guy where you're like, yes, of course I know the name because it's got that, there's some, Oliver North, there's something about, it's memorable.
Yeah.
And you remember him sitting in front of a congressional hearing, and that's, you remember the look and the defiance, and that's about it, right? I'm done. I'm tapped out of my knowledge at that point.
If you say so. I mean, I was 5, so I mean, I was aware it was happening and that it was a deal, but that might also be because, like many other things that are going to come up, it was covered in like a week-long story arc in Bloom County. So when I read that anthology in, again, probably 1994, I was like, this must have been a big deal. Like Gene Kirkpatrick was had a big role in that, so I was always thought that she had a much bigger presence in the history of our country than she probably actually did.
What was the name that came up on a recent Patreon? You don't have to know this because I'll say, now I remember it. Kevin brought up, as though everyone would know it, Hermione Gingold.
Yes.
And obviously that's mock-worthy, but I can't come up with a single Hermione Gingold. I can come up with maybe one or two things about Colonel Oliver North, so I guess I'm ahead of the game.
Sure. But I mean, it was a pretty big. I imagine it was in the headlines for a while, and is all things considered a notable enough scandal that I guess it deserves, maybe warrants more of an inclusion than is what is later to come in this section. But who knows? I hope you think so because we're getting another chapter about it.
I think it probably is, although in terms of it being sort of any kind of a fun thing or anything to visit, I question that choice. It seems more, let's get into the weeds, or maybe it has a specific beef about it that I wasn't aware of. I don't know. Yes. I don't know.
Well, it paves the way for some extremely... I think the beef is probably there. I'm not going to bother to look into what Winston Groom's opinion of the whole thing is, but he and you might not be able to tell because the strokes he paints are so broad, but we'll get into that in the next chapter. But so this is the real or fanfic segment of the show where we're going to try to trick you with passages that may be from later in Gump and Cump, or our fanfic written by some of our loyal Patreon supporters. We love them over on patreon.com/372pages. They got to hear all about your fourth misfortune in about a month this week. We shared some bonus emails with them. I've got another book I'm going to spring upon them this week that I wrote when I was in first grade. So please go and join them. And I think we're 4 Patreon supporters away from me making the first of Forrest's soda concoctions. And then 14 and 24 away from more bonus stuff.
Yeah, can we at least get Connor to drink the one which I assume has like cumin and Worcestershire and
it's not gonna be good.
Yeah.
There's always like a couple people that drop off when they get charged at the end of the month because their credit card is expired or something. So that took it back down into territory of me being further away from drinking the nasty stuff. So I was somewhat relieved to see that.
Yes, but we'll get there.
Yeah. So these are 5 segments, potentially all real, potentially all fanfic, or a combination of the two. Number 1. It ain't like I was too desperate to get to Berlin or nothing, but it's always an annoyance sitting through the extra steps and shit these planes go through. Flying to Nam was just one damn plane, but here I was in New York City after an 8-hour flight from Alaska, waiting 2 hours for a who knows how long flight to someplace in France or Italy or something just to take a train down to West Berlin. And I remember real clear how I sweared when I saw a damn airport right next to that train station. Still, I done plenty of sitting around in my life, and I'm damn good at finding something to keep occupied. I sat next to a fella with a big mop of hair who was all cross about his flight getting delayed, and I got it and I listened and complained right with him. But at some point he said something like, "The whole world feels like it's on fire lately." And I must have felt that was wrong, because I've been through so much in my life, and I knew better than anyone today. And I knew better than anyone today was no more crazy than it ever has been. So I just started listing all the shit I've seen. Space monkeys and Beatlemania, the Bay of Pigs, JFK getting blown away, Nixon coming back, Watergate, all that kind of shit. And the fella just nodded and said all quiet like, "I guess we really didn't start this fire, huh?"
Oh, God. Did he say a big mop of hair?
Yeah. Fella with a big mop of hair.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I describe Billy Joel that way. I guess kind of back in the day.
Yeah.
Who knows? I'm going to say that that's fanfic.
All right. Number 2. Now, I ain't been to China since my ping pong days, but I don't remember people being this angry back when. And I thought people been mad at old Dickie Nixon, but this was something else. Both the kids and the army were what Mama would have called more pissed than the devil on ice cream day. Anyway, unable to find me some egg foo young, I stood next to these kids holding signs I couldn't read, chanting words I couldn't understand. "You American?" one of them asked. "Yes, sir, and I know a bit about protests. And I always thought it sure would be something if someone were to stand up to one of them tanks."
Oh. Sorry, I'm stepped slightly to the side. Hang on. I've torn my own headphones out so you can talk, and I will not be able to hear you for about 3 or 4 seconds.
All right.
This is really going well today, Connor. I'm almost there. Okay, now I'm back. I'm going to say that that's fanfic, although I like that as well.
Wow. Number 3. "Mr. Gump, I want you to meet Tom Hanks," she says. "Pleased to meet you," I say, and introduce him to Little Forrest. "I've seen you," Little Forrest says, "on television." "You an actor?" I asked. "Sure am," Tom Hanks says. "What about you?" So I told him a little bit about my checkered career, and after he listened for a while, Tom Hanks says, "Well, Mr. Gump, you sure are a curious feller. Sounds like somebody ought to make a movie of your life story." "Nah," I says, "ain't nobody be interested in something stupid like that." "You never know," says Tom Hanks. "Life is like a box of chocolates. By the way, I just happen to have a box of chocolates right here. You want to buy some?"
Oh, my God. Well, I mean, obviously my first instinct is to say that is 100,000% fanfic, but it does play into my suspicions that an angry man wrote this book, an angry Winston Groom. So against all probability, I'll say that that's real.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Wow. All right.
I guess I have my answer.
Number 4. "Well, we buy and sell shit. Stuff on paper, actually. Bonds, stocks, businesses, whatever. We don't buy and sell anything, really. But when we get through talking on the phones and shuffling all the papers, we wind up with a shit pot of money in our pockets." "How do you do that?" "Easy," Ivan Bozovsky says. "Meanness, dirty tricks and stuff, peeking over people's shoulders, going behind their backs, picking their pockets. It's a jungle out there, Gump, and right now I am the big tiger. So what do you want me to do?" Ivan puts his hand on my shoulder. "Gump, I am starting a new division in my company in New York called the Division of Insider Trading, and I want you to be its president."
Oh, my God. Ivan, I believe it's Boski. That's just from memory. I could be wrong. That's how I think
Boski,
people...
yeah, but it's yeah.
It does look like it's Bozoski or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is going to get me in trouble. I'm going to say that's real.
Wow. All right. And number 5. "You want to go see her?" "Who?" "The Statue of Liberty." "I guess," he says. Well, good, because I done arranged for us to take a tour of the town these next few days. We is going to see all the sights. So that's what we did. We gone down Fifth Avenue to see the shops and out to the Statue of Liberty and the top of the Empire State Building, where Little Forrest says he wants to throw something off to see how long it takes to land on the ground. I did not let him do that, though. We gone up to Grant's Tomb and down to Broadway, where there was a man exposing himself, and in Central Park, but not for long, account of there was muggers present. We took the subway and come out near the Plaza Hotel, where we stopped in for a Coca-Cola. The bill come, and it was $25. That's a bunch of shit, says Little Forrest.
Okay. People are picking up on the shit theme, which is fairly prominent. But, boy, bringing that up again. I'm going to say that that's fanfic.
Okay. All right. Well, this one's going to raise your percentage, that's for sure.
Okay.
Did well. Number one was sitting on the plane next to Billy Joel and inspiring the song "We Didn't Start the Fire." That you said fanfic. That was fanfic, written by Celia. Very funny.
I think that's great. I mean, I think that's the whole book, right? So it makes sense that you would do that. So yes. I think that's touch of brilliance. But yeah.
Number two was Forrest goes to China and inspires a guy to stand up in front of a tank in Tiananmen Square. You said fanfic. That was fanfic, written by Harris, also very, very entertaining, very funny. Number three is he meets Tom Hanks. You said real. That is real. That will happen later in the book. That was submitted by two different listeners, Craig and Jens. Both got to that point and figured. I didn't think there was any way that was going to that you would get that right. I'll be honest.
You got to, out there, if you're listening, come on, nerves of steel to do that, to claim that is real.
But you went through the process of like Wallace Shawn in The Princess Bride deciding which cup has the poison in it. You know?
Of course. That's what I do every decision. Of course, you want me to think that it's real.
Exactly. It's so insane. Anyway, you didn't really hesitate on that one, so I think I don't know. I thought that would be trickier. Number four was Ivan Bozowski. You said real, and that is real.
Wow.
Coming later. Talk about, that's not even someone I remember from Bloom County. So like Michael Milken I've heard of, but this one I don't remember that week where that dominated the headlines.
This is only that's when I was a very young man. That name was constantly in the news, so it's well before your time.
Yeah, I guess he probably could have gotten a shout out in Wolf of Wall Street or something.
Yes,
but number five was going to see the Statue of Liberty, and Forrest saying that's a bunch of shit. You said fanfic. That was real though.
Oh no,
they're going to take Manhattan at some point in time.
Oh no,
that 4 to 5 is not bad. Yeah,
that's not bad. But if could have had it, could have been a contender.
Great. Well, thank you for everyone who sent those in. Keep the tricky ones coming. Let's move on to Chapter 6. Chapter 6 begins with Oliver North taking... it just sounds ridiculous to say. He takes Forrest Gump to a army fort, gets him outfitted to look like a army private, and says, "Well, Gump, this is an improvement if I do say so," the colonel says. "Now look here. I want your ass spit and polished from now on in. If it's necessary, I want you to even spit shine your asshole. You got that?" Colonel Oliver North said to Forrest Gump. Yes.
Oh, well, this is a guy who likes to go to town and sort of ass around.
Sure, that's...
you know what it reminds me of, and obviously all my references are going to be old, but this has been ever since I was a kid. There's a Faulty Towers where an American comes and demands something that is not on the menu, and the American is over the top, like... American, like, "Look, you son of a bitch, I want my stuff." And he wants a Waldorf salad.
Oh, yeah.
And he goes, "Well, if he can't make one, you go in there and you bust his ass." And he says ass a lot, and Faulty does not understand. And then the second time he uses it and goes, "You get in there and bust his ass." And he's like, "What? It's always backsides with you Americans, isn't it?" That's what I thought of this. Is like, what is with wasn't there a doorknob that he thought hit someone directly on the asshole?
Yes, exactly.
What is this? He seems to have a particular obsession here.
Yeah, it just makes Forrest even more of a dirtbag, I would say.
it's odd, but yes, that's Colonel Oliver North. I don't know if that was taken right from his congressional testimony or not, but it's hard to say.
Yes. Do you recall saying that? I cannot recall.
Put hand over the microphone, turn to his counsel. I have no recollection of that.
Yes. That doesn't sound like something I would say. But, he says, bidness. And so you're like, oh, that's Forrest hearing that. But, is Forrest like making him say these weird folksisms? Like, I don't know.
Yes.
But getting right down to it, Oliver North brings him over to the White House, waltzes him right into the Oval Office and introduces him into President Reagan. Forrest is like, oh, I've met the president before. And he's like, well, it's a different president now. So that's sort of a ha-ha, look at this idiot type of thing.
Oh, I always circle the Larry King laughs. That was
yes.
That was a Larry King laugh there.
But, we get into this thing, which means we get to do the Reagan impressions, which is always fun. He starts off, with a well, as you would, doing any, well,
that's the only way into it.
Yes, exactly.
I can't imagine another. I guess mommy, maybe, but
Sure.
possibly. But
yes.
But well is obviously the word you start with.
Yeah, and that's probably the extent of what I'm able to do as a Reagan impression. But he says that Colonel North tells me you won the Congressional Medal of Honor. And they go through some more Larry King humor. Yes, sir. And what did you do to get it? I runned. Beg your pardon, said the president. And he says, he ran, sir, Colonel North interrupted, but he didn't tell you he ran carrying 5 or 6 of his wounded buddies out of the line of fire. Well, Colonel, there you go again, says the president, putting words in people's mouths. And, so that's sort of Foghat getting out there and teasing the slow ride intro. He's just playing the hits. It's the line from the debate. Woo!
Oh, he should have had Nancy come in, and she was like doing her astrology things, and well, mommy, is that the decaf?
Right? Yeah. She asks Forrest if he wanted a Pepsi, and he wants a Coke, and she says all we have is Pepsi, and he goes, well, I'll just say no to that, Nancy. I don't know. We're joking, but more of this is coming.
It's almost as though Homer Simpson were off to the side going, get to...
yes, right. Working overtime.
Get to working overtime.
Yes. But so he drops there you go again. And then Oliver North follows it up with, sorry, sir, says the colonel. I was just trying to clarify matters, put them in a proper perspective. And that's just so... It struck me as so glaringly weird because until then he's been saying spit shine your asshole, that I assumed that could have been some sort of greatest hit from the trial, but or the hearing. But I looked up Oliver North clarify matters. I didn't find anything.
Oh, I thought the same thing and didn't look it up because I just assumed, okay, that must be because it's so dry and weird.
Yes.
And then you leave that to me, the president says. That's my job, not yours. By the way, Colonel North, have we met before? So,
oh, yeah.
A joke, I assume, on his fading
yes.
memory. I'm guessing. I don't think it's anything else, right?
I think no. That's definitely a joke. I think Norm Macdonald had the best. I remember seeing a Norm Macdonald joke about him. Reports from his ranch say that the former president is in good health, riding horses and chopping wood. Sadly, the truth is that he is chopping horses and riding wood.
Yes.
And then we get to this stretch, which is just you got to tip your hat, you got to kiss your fingers for this. We finally get down to business. In a corner of the room is a TV set, and the president, he has been watching Concentration. Why don't you turn that shit off, Colonel? The president says. It confuses me. Right, sir, says the colonel. Personally, I prefer The Price is Right myself. Last time I was here... Oh, sorry, that's not Reagan, that's Forrest Gump. Last time I was here, I said, trying to get in on the conversation, the president, he's sometimes watched To Tell the Truth. Turns to the camera. But that was a long time ago. So the capital steps have taken over co-authoring duties here.
Well, and then everyone gets a chance to turn to the camera, but that was a long time ago. I ain't too fond of that one, Colonel North says.
Oh, man. So it's we move at a fast political comedy era these days. Something's going to be very played out, 24 hours after it happens. I guess.
Yes.
I guess in this era, you could have maybe had a 10-year hang time on your Oliver North lying to Congress jokes, but probably not. There was probably a played out joke by this point in time, even then too. Although
you should have had him fishing into a jar of jelly beans for some sort of gag too.
Yes,
that was some.
Wow.
But, yeah.
So yeah, that's the Larry King got a big laugh at that one, I assume.
Oh, yes, I had that circled as a huge laugh for him.
And how about this one? For the next few hours, the colonel, he explained his scheme to the president. Once or twice, the president dozed off, and the colonel had to stop and wake him up by tickling his nose with a feather he kept in his uniform pocket for that purpose. So I don't even know what cartoon to compare that to.
That sounds about right.
And the plan is that they're going on over to Iran to talk to the, as they say it in the book, the Ayatollah, which is how Forrest Gump spells it.
And if you're me, I'm slightly cringing at this meeting, like, oh boy. And it does not disappoint.
Yes.
This is not going to be a sensitive portrayal of the. Of that region, shall we say? That culture, but we'll get to that.
Sure. Well, before they travel over there, this was a very puzzling thing to me. The president says, he says, whatever you want to do now, Ollie, but now I got to watch Let's Make a Deal. Yes, that's a fine show, Mr. President. The one I really liked was Queen for a Day, but it don't come on no more. The president says, looking kind of sad. Fill me in on what the Capitol Steps joke here is.
I tried to puzzle that one out myself. I could not get to it, but I wasn't going to spend any time looking it up. I think it's just that he's supposed to be really old.
He wasn't on it. He wasn't a guest on it. Nancy was not on it.
Oh,
I don't know. No, I looked. I didn't see anything.
Oh, okay. All right. Yes. I can only assume that it was very old. I told you that my dad used to make fun of us by telling us that we were watching too much TV. Like, you're sitting around on your asses watching Super Circus when you could be out doing something. And it was like, when was the last time that was on? Was that like Philo T. Farnsworth made that in his garage and sent it out to? I think that's supposed to be what Queen for a Day was.
Okay.
I've only heard of it as like being a really, really old thing.
Got it. So, okay. All right. Well, if they had Super Circus in here, we would have thought to be okay. We got a copy of this tailored directly for our interests here.
Yes. All right. So they head off to. They do go back to get. They get Lieutenant Dan, or they say goodbye to him.
Yeah, they say goodbye, and Little Forrest is there, I think. Or he calls him on the phone and says he's heading over there, and he asks about Wanda, and Wanda's in the zoo.
That's right. Yeah.
He says Little Forrest's response is to being told the pig's in the zoo. So she's just going to be there for everybody to make fun of, huh? What do you think happens at zoos? People walk by and roast the animals? Questionable. I hope he's okay.
I did see guys flinging something at the Japanese snow monkeys one time, and the one guy said, "Monkey's got a red butt." I actually heard that live, so that was good. Yeah, so they do roast the animals occasionally.
Sure, yeah, that was worthy of being at the Friars Club. That line.
Sure.
Well, yeah, let's go to Iran and see what happens. The first thing that happens is they introduce him. He says, "This sumbitch is weird," the Ayatollah. And standing behind the Ayatollah was two guys in baggy-looking diapers. Not the last guys to be wearing diapers in this book. And he says, so this is a Iranian guy, a guard, have big swords in their belts. And one of them says, "Don't you never call the Ayatollah a sumbitch. He might figure out what it means, and then we got to chop off your heads." So they also talk like a good old boy from Alabama, too.
I wondered about that. Do they cast them ahead of time because they know Forrest is coming? Like, look, we want to make him feel comfortable. So, get Jim Neighbors and some characters from Mayberry to stand by. Very strange that they would talk that way.
Right. Yeah. Get the Mayberry guys into their diapers. I assume these are guys who just look like the guys trying to track down Aladdin in the Disney Aladdin.
Yes.
Based on Winston Groom's descriptions here.
And I believe this is the Ayatollah. I guess I should take better notes. Why you let that worry you, I asked. This is him, I think, asking the Ayatollah. On account of I am a dignified feller and I don't take no shit off nobody, and who is these turds that will not let me in the World Council of Churches? I am the Ayatollah of Iran, after all. I am a big cheese, you dummy. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, I guess I wrote, is the author all right? It's like when Malkovich, John Malkovich sees everybody as John Malkovich in that movie. And just like, that's just how Forrest Gump is with everybody in the world.
Yeah, but I don't get where I can't aim the target of humor is missing from. I don't know what's happening.
That is followed very quickly by this passage, which for even a second would you have guessed this was real if it came up in real or fanfic. The Ayatollah does whatever he wants. That's the Ayatollah saying this. You don't like it? Kiss my ass. Well, I am a Marine colonel, and I don't kiss asses. At this, the Ayatollah commenced slapping his thighs and bust out laughing. Very good, Colonel. Very good. I think we can do some business here.
I would, of course, say, go back and rewrite that fanfic. That is
really
terrible.
Man. And later on, the Ayatollah chuckles and says, look what happened when that other numbnuts president of yours came over here and tried to screw with our hostage-taking enterprise. I mean, it's I said it's like when Van Morrison had to do that contractual obligation album, you know?
Oh, yeah, right.
Bang Records, and he wrote songs about having ringworm that obviously he just picked up a guitar, strummed it, and did one take off the top of his head. And, I mean, you have to imagine this was just Winston Groom was sort of writing this like Larry with his eye on 5 o'clock.
Yeah, and like I don't even get the joke here. So right after that joke about Carter's hostage thing, he goes, the Ayatollah asks, what's his name? It don't matter. He ain't here anymore, say the colonel. Yeah, I know all about that too. The Ayatollah begun to laugh again and slap his thighs. I mean, even Capital Steps would be like, let's sharpen that joke a little bit.
Yes, really.
Let's. What is the focus on that one? Anyone? You know, if not, let's drop it. You know.
Yeah. Say what you will about the Capitol Steps. They don't just come out on the stage and go politics and expect people to start slapping their thighs in the audience.
All right, so we have a '70s movie version, like almost like Mel Brooks would give you a more subtle impersonation of the Ayatollah of Iran, I'm assuming.
Yes, I think so. He'd probably be playing the Ayatollah himself, but
yes,
it might be a little more subtle. Yeah, the guys with the underpants beat the gong, so we get a Miss Hopewell callback from her when he was giving her the massage.
Oh, yeah, I did put a note that I hope all, dad jokes in the future, if they don't get the gong, that'll be kind of disappointing, right?
Right, yes.
Because he does like an Ayatollah dad joke and goes, bong, huh?
And then Forrest Gump gets his own sort of like vaudeville joke when he says, what do you want for lunch? And he says, maybe a ham sandwich. Sorry, maybe a ham sandwich, I answered. And that causes some Ayatollah to, run around screaming and... the guys start to point their scimitars at him and stuff.
Yeah, I was not a fan of his reaction to this either. As he says, "Father of God," screams the Ayatollah. "Don't say them kinds of things in here. We people ain't ate no nasty ham in 3,000 years." He begun waving his hands and scowling again. I mean, 3,000 years, you're off by 1,800 years. But whatever. But I don't. That just Icke to me to do that joke. It just seemed gross. Yeah. I didn't like it.
Okay, well, it's nasty ham, nasty jokes. We've got it all going on here, and they didn't bang the gong after this joke, so maybe the gong guys were even sort of cringing themselves.
Speaking of dad jokes, and here's no gong. Who tells this? I don't know. Anyway, it's in its entirety here. Well, the policeman says to him, "Say, didn't you see them arrows?" And the drunk says, "Arrows? I didn't even see the Indians."
Yeah.
"For Christ's sakes, Gump," the colonel hisses, but just then the Ayatollah busts out in a big laugh and begun slapping his thighs and stamping his feet.
Wow, he He's like Mr. Mcgiver.
Mr. Mcgiver. I wish he had pulled out 2 sidearms, from his leather holsters and started firing at the ground and hooting and hollering about the gold in them thar hills, but he didn't.
Wow. So everyone is the same character, essentially.
Yes, with the same voice.
But they essentially broker the deal, I guess, and or I guess the Ayatollah pulls Gump aside, and he has this. We get a nice little exchange here. He says, "Look here, Mr. Gump," the Ayatollah says when we get outside. "I don't like this Colonel Nurth of yours. His diplomacy is too slick, and my impression is that he's trying to put a fast one over on me." "Oh, I don't know about that," I says. "He seems to me like a truthful feller." So you're sort of getting the scene in Titanic where Billy Zane holds up like a Van Gogh painting. He's like, "Oh, this guy will never amount to nothing. Throw it away." So it's we're going from capital steps to that level of humor.
But I didn't really get. I mean, obviously, I get what the beat is supposed to be. Like, I'm not going to do this, Iran-Contra scam of yours because I don't trust this guy. And then he's like, "Oh, shucks, man, you should really take the deal." And then it just sort of happens. But I didn't really get the.
No, they just
get what Forrest did that made it.
Why he had to go to Iran to do this? Here's what he does. He says, he goes, "I am a military man." That is a little better, I suppose. So from that standpoint, how do you think these missiles will help the poor old Ayatollah in his war against the infidels in Iraq? Damn if I know. And he says, "Oh, that's the kind of answer I like to hear. You go tell them we got to deal arms for hostages." So that was the key, chess mind of Oliver North that needed Forrest Gump to be there.
Okay.
He went to Iran to ass around a bit.
Yes. All right. So successfully negotiates the arms, and he goes back.
Yeah.
But then all hell breaks loose, and Lieutenant Dan is at Walter Reed Hospital.
Yeah, he gives him quite a greeting when he shows up. Lieutenant Dan says, "Where have you been, you big asshole?" Dan asked. That was his first sentence when he gets back to see him from Iran and in the hospital.
Which I didn't even understand that exchange. I guess. Well, here's a little bit more of Lieutenant Dan, in case you were wondering.
Sure.
Let's focus on this character a little more. Did you get back the hostages? Not yet. Yeah, and you never will, you dumb cluck.
Wow.
So your favorite, I think, would be the Marx Brothers.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
I think they called each other dumb clucks occasionally
nice.
Back in 1933.
Very
so.
nice. Well, he's been living that hobo lifestyle, and they're always a few decades behind.
That's true.
We got an oyster callback, too. They don't have oysters in the cafeteria, which Lieutenant Dan is dismayed about, but he just has been eating ice cream because that's the next. If you got to eat something soft, that's got to be it, either oysters or ice cream.
Missed opportunity, though, not to reminisce about oysters not eaten. It could have been another 3 paragraphs. There's plenty more oyster varieties, I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And plenty of ways to serve them. What's the little French, vinegar
Mignonette.
sauce with the shell? Yeah.
Yep.
No, that was not mentioned before.
They didn't talk about blue points. I mean, they didn't talk about PEIs. So, didn't talk about the unfortunate demise of Dollar Oyster Night. That seems to really have, when restaurants shut down in the past 2 years, it's a hard thing for them to go back to, in my personal experience. Now I'm ranting about oysters. So
I will say once I was in South Carolina, and we found an oyster special, and we had to catch our plane, and the woman is like, "Look, at the last second, I can crack these oysters for you at the dollar an oyster price, but not until then." And we're like, let's do it. And we waited, and then it was like, all right, we got to go. So we paid our bill, and we fly out to the airport, and then we get there, and our flight is delayed. We drive right back to the restaurant and start ordering more oysters.
Power move.
It was glorious.
Yeah.
Just glorious.
Yeah. So, but this is the one thing about Lieutenant Dan I can relate to, I guess. It's been very quickly established.
Yes.
And what do we do? They go see the pig in the zoo?
Yeah, which the pig is. So the zoo just takes in a pig, I guess. Mm-hmm. But they put him next to the tiger and the seals.
Yeah.
Is that what? Why?
How you divide up a zoo like that? Yes.
And I guess they have a pig guy at the zoo. Mm-hmm. Normally, right, there would be someone who would have to be like, is anyone who's a giraffe guy? We're going to get some giraffes in.
I'm working on trying to get the giant pandas pregnant. I've done 10 years as a PhD to learn about them. So, but I guess I could switch to being a pig guy. Sure, it doesn't seem too difficult.
We would also like to ask you to shovel his waste into a trough in the ground and ferment it with methane, and then power the zoo. So if you could do that on your lunch break, appreciate it.
I think you're going to notice that if we do that, the endangered Peruvian flamingo is probably going to start molting very quickly from the seeping into the water supply. I would not recommend it.
This is technology on the high-tech ships at sea, so please just do your job.
Oh, it's revolutionary green tech, I see.
That's true.
Okay. And then this chapter sort of peters out, I guess. He throws a guy into the tiger tank or the seal tank because Forrest is trying to feed the pig, and he tosses him in there. And he grabbed him and lifted him up in the air. Then I spun him around a few times, like I remember from my wrestling days with the professor and the turd.
Yeah.
So that's another plan that hits for the crowd. And the seal comes up and like slaps the guy with his flippers like you would in a cartoon. And the guy, as Forrest makes his exit, is hollering and shouting and shaking his fist. So I don't know if anyone has actually shaken his fist yet. A lot of people have spiritually shaken their fist at him, but this is the first one we really get.
It is nice. And I don't know if your mind went to it. I assume everyone listening has. The professor and the turd. The turd, excuse me, was a sidekick of the radio host Man Cow.
Yes, I think we
Chicago.
discussed this on the first one.
That's correct. So
it is.
It's off-putting to have it out of place like that.
Yeah, it's a whole morning zoo team right there.
Yes. So that's chapter 6.
Yeah, we can wrap it up with chapter 7, where we get some exciting developments and another ripped from the headlines of 10 years ago moment for Forrest to deal with.
Oh boy, yes.
We get straight to the hearings, I guess.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what they did was they sold the Ayatollah arms. He took that money and then they funded the Contras in South America. I don't remember what country it was in.
Yes, in South America. Yes.
And so Oliver North is now on Capitol Hill testifying to Congress. And it doesn't go well very quickly. He says, I'm a Marine. I obey orders. If the president told me to commit a crime, I would salute smartly and charge up the hill. Hill? What hill? Capitol Hill? Maybe that was Senator Robert Byrd being confused there. No, you jackass, any hill. It's a figure of speech. We are the Marines. We charge up hills for a living. Oh, yeah? Then how come they call you jarheads? I'll kill you, you sumbitch. I rip your head off and spit down your neck. So I just don't know what's going on here as the unhinged guy is testifying before Congress.
I have that same line pulled out, and I hoped you could shed some light on it. Does the jar head mean that, like, ripping someone's head off as though it were a jar? Or, like, what is I don't know what's going on.
He says we charge up hill for a living, so how come they call you jar heads? It's asking you two different. It has nothing to do with that. Like,
no, this is non sequitur.
Yeah, well, it's contractual obligation album, I guess.
So I thought of you. I think I sent you this. Is that this kind of stuff, this back and forth, these jokes make the Groucho Marx lines that you hate so much look pretty good.
Wow.
So
I guess so. Sure. I mean, at least they put some effort into it.
Private Gump, you are evading my question, and you are under oath. Are you trying to make the United States Senate look ridiculous? We can hold you in contempt. I reckon you already do, I says. Huh? Now, it put me in mind of there's a short piece by another guy, Ewell, speaking of contempt, that Ewell hold in contempt, Robert Benchley,
okay,
who wrote from the 20s and 30s.
Who
was a member of the Algonquin Round Table.
Oh, right, that yuck fest.
But he had he wrote a piece that I quite liked. I will not quote from it here, but look it up. It's him imagining he's on the stand and then having questions already, like smart-ass questions already, or answers to questions already in his head. Uh-huh. And so it's like he's being cross-examined and saying witty things. And it's very funny because he sometimes goes like, "Yeah, I haven't come up with anything for that yet, but I'll think about it. It'll be really witty, and the whole jury will laugh, and the judge will bang his gavel." But this whole section reminded me of like, there's so much you could have done here,
right?
And the jokes are just like, ugh.
There's potentially art to it, yes, but then instead of that, you get Oliver North saying, calling Admiral Poindexter a pipe-smoking butthole on the stand. He ain't got the sense to pour piss out of a boot.
Oh, there you go. My dad comes back.
Yeah.
Makes a return. Yeah.
Speaking of coming back, Gump's testimony is, what did you tell the president then? I told him the last time I met a president, he wanted to watch To Tell the Truth on TV. And what did the president say? He said he would rather watch Let's Make a Deal. Private Gump, I remind you, you're under oath here. Well, actually, he was watching Concentration, but it said it confuses him. Your Honor, this bit was not funny enough the first time, let alone as a callback. Like, yes. Sustained.
Yes.
You will not reprise this bit again.
Oh, wait. I do have, all right, indulge me. I do have a few lines of Robert Benchley on the, just to give you an example of what it could have been.
Sure.
Okay. So this is the...
I read Boxcar Willie conspiracies for 2 minutes.
Yes, that's true. This is the prosecutor. Just how did you happen to know that it was 11:15 when you saw the defendant? Because I looked at my watch. And just why did you look at your watch at this particular time? To see what time it was. Are you accustomed to looking at your watch often? That is one of the uses to which I often put my watch. I see. How could you said it was 10:15 instead of 11:15? How do you know it couldn't have been 10:15 when you looked at it? Well, it could have. Oh, it could have been 10:15? Yes, sir. If I had been in Chicago. And then he has in quotes, not very good, really. I'll work up something better. Wow. I move to have that answer stricken from the record.
Nice.
So that's just a better version
yes,
of
very
what
much
is
so.
Attempting to do here.
It could have been if I had been assing around for another hour.
That's right. Kind of assing around.
Kind of, yes. Well, they aren't so happy about this, and they say, Private Gump, do you understand the penalty for making the United States Congress look like fools? He says, no, sir. He says, well, we can throw your ass in jail, not to put too fine a point on it. Asses, just like, man.
A polished asshole in jail.
And they end up doing it. It says, Washington Post, next day says, moron detained in contempt of Congress case. And I was wondering, like, if this keeps happening, the papers are going to run out of synonyms and have to, like, violate their own, like, standards and practices and be like, dipshit accused of...
Right. It's going to become, it's the Onion, circa 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Local dumbass, know.
Right. But he does. He says the senator testifies that Gump will rot in that jail until he repents for trying to make fools of the U.S. Congress. Only the U.S. Congress itself and not some shit heaver from Alabama is permitted to do that. So I was just wondering, like, this is, if you could be thrown in jail for making fun of Congress, like, Jay Leno had to have just been absolutely shaking in his boots at this point in time.
Holy cow. Think of how many laws that guy violated.
Yeah, it pretty much, was on the air to the country, committing felonies nightly. And it turned out that there was a period of time where he briefly, they didn't make a big deal out of this, and he never addressed it publicly, but Jay Leno went to prison.
Jay Leno went to prison?
Right around the time of this book for making fun of Congress.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's a big scandal. I mean, it sort of violates the First Amendment, some might say, and so some dark web hackers were very worked up about this. They thought it was a real violation of free speech, and they went on and they found that the prison Jay Leno had been in had been recording its inmates surreptitiously.
Oh, there's so many violations happening here.
Big scandal. They really unearthed this, and this is we might be breaking the news of this thing. So this could be we might be called before Congress at some point in time. So I hope you've got your list of witty rejoinders going right now.
Well, I have that. I also have a list of high-powered attorneys. I've got Ivan Boesky's on speed dial, so we're set to go. Yeah,
you retained him out of the Players Fund, I hope.
Oh yes, you knew that though.
Sure,
They're on constant retainer.
As long as they're on retainer for both of us, if we're staying in trial here.
Yes, of course.
Good. Okay. But yeah, so there's a line from Jay Leno's first week in prison as he served this time. It was probably one of those times where he had Elaine Boozler guest host or something, The Tonight Show.
Oh, that's right. Yes, that would have been So I know exactly when this happened. Fascinating. I always thought he was away like buying a new Duesenberg or something for his garage.
Right.
But apparently he was serving hard time.
Cool. Yeah, let's take a listen.
Yeah, so prison wine. You heard about this? Yeah. Yeah, they pour grape juice in the toilet, they wait a few weeks and it turns into wine. So when you have to go to a restaurant, the waiter says, will it be red, white, or crapper? Yeah, we have an 84 vintage. Oh, 84, was that a good year? No, the inmates were eating a lot of chili back then. Ooh, man, this is harder without an audience.
Hey, funny man, you got a new cellmate.
Oh, hey there, pal. Yeah, guess he didn't draw Judge Ito, huh? Yeah, I'll tell you, that Judge Ito guy, it's easier to get off in his courtroom than going on a date with Madonna. Yeah, Madonna, she's in the news again. She's got that song, Like a Virgin? Yeah, that's like me singing, Like a Guy with a Small Chin. Anyway, how's it going? Jay Leno, pleased to meet you.
Rollo Jackson.
Hey, Rollo Jackson. I think we did a headline segment about you. There was that one that said, robbers steal man's car and wife. Sure. Hello, police. I'd like to report a missing car. That you were the next headline. Murderer Rollo Jackson caught after deadly firefight. That one wasn't as funny.
I got some rules in my cell. First rule, you don't look me in the eye unless I'm on the toilet. Then it's mandatory.
I think I read something similar in Senator Bob Packwood's diaries. Say, speaking of Senator Packwood...
Second, I'm busting out of here as soon as I can, and you're gonna help me. So get to work making a shiv.
Everyone's nuts about shivs these days. Cell Block A, they're making shivs. Cell Block B, they're making shivs. Shivs. Inmates gotta have their shivs. I mean, did we learn nothing from the pet rock fad? Next Christmas, 90% off all shivs and pogs.
Huh. So, what are you in for, man?
Yeah. You mean, what's my beef? Well, I stuck it to those clowns in Congress. You see that those clowns in Congress are on vacation again? I'll tell you, the only guy who goes on more vacations than those clowns in Congress is Clark Griswold.
Well, you listen to Rollo. Rollo will make sure nobody sticks it to you, if you catch my drift.
Oh, yes, prison bitch scenario. And I'm not talking about Tanya Harding.
Hey, Mr. Leno, I think that in the years since, it's been well established that Ms. Harding was the victim of several mitigating factors, including severe pressure from her mother, an abusive husband, a misogynistic bent to the national sports media, and societal bias against her perceived redneck image, which was really more a reflection of her participation in a sport which did not typically have athletes of lower economic means.
Yeah. Rollo, I gotta say, I didn't expect that level of insight from you.
I'll be honest, Jay. It's really more about us having made our point here and trying to figure out a way to wrap this bit up before we run it into the ground.
I understand. And I'll try not to judge people going forward. Kind of like this Lance Ito guy. You hear about him?
Hey, eye contact.
Sorry, Rollo.
Well, I think that's our nation's potentially biggest scandal of the past 30 years.
I mean, I'm surprised that I guess he did an NDA after that, where, he spent some time in prison and never talked about it. But it doesn't surprise me. Remember in that Seinfeld documentary, he revealed something that I always read, but I could not believe was true, was that he never spent his Tonight Show money.
Yeah.
Because he just felt like, I got to make my living hitting the road. And you remember, he was constantly, like, he was taping the show and then flying off
to Yuck
like
Yucks
North
in Green
Dakota.
Bay. Yeah.
Yes. And doing, like, material. And not only that, he would go, didn't he go, like, nightly down to some place and,
Joshua Tree or something? Or
No, he went somewhere down the coast, but, just out, 45 minutes away from L.A. to some comedy club and just, like, test out Tonight Show material. Got to do it. Like, the guy he's a maniac.
Yeah, that's pathological at some point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting to hear. Interesting,
fascinating tale. Think of what we've revealed on this episode about Boxcar Willie, about Senator Robert Byrd, the unknown super secret prison sentence of Jay Leno.
It's amazing.
My God,
David Icke is going to do the true 372 pages at some point in time.
Yes. So anyway, he's in prison, and right away, yes, Forrest is in prison. Right away, we get. Who would you like to see? Who would be the most comic character that you could imagine that he runs across?
Brother,
prison?
We just heard one of them, but we've, Galooly was just mentioned. I guess that's
that would be pretty funny. I mean, I guess even an Ivan Boesky or who's the other insider trading? Michael Milken with his wig off or something.
Sure.
And then this bald feller come up to me and he's into inside. No, I think even funnier.
Okay.
John Hinckley, who was always talking about the actress Jodie Foster.
I, again, said I wouldn't have believed it in 1,000 years.
I had to what, huh?
Especially since we just had an entire chapter where we were talking about Ronald Reagan and there was no mention of that or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to think who would be funnier. John Wayne Gacy, big laughs there.
There was a friendly clown in my cell who was always doing paintings.
My God. Anyway, that is a throwaway laugh line.
Yeah, he's in a cell with a forger, a child molester, a dynamite bomber, and John Hinckley. It sounds like a bunch of guys walk into a bar joke.
Yes. But that's not the last mention, of course.
Of Hinckley?
No, of the people that he meets in prison.
Yeah, take it through. I forget what happens here. Does Little Forrest visit him? Is this the...
Well, no, he meets a little fella named the Reverend Jim Baker.
Oh, yes.
So, I mean...
he comes to rehabilitate him, and he says they're going to do a work release program because he has a big old religious theme park in North Carolina and needs fellers like me to help him run it. Oh, he's talking to Little Forrest. He's like, what's his name? The Reverend Jim Baker. And this is, again, just like another Bloom County story arc. I think Bill the Cat became a televangelist during like this era of televangelist scandals. So that was always like, all right, that's okay. I know. And then there was a movie last year about Tammy Faye. So here we go. We're going down to North Carolina at his theme park. And Tammy Faye looked like a Cupid doll with eyelashes as long as dragonflies' wings. And there was also a younger woman hanging around named of Jessica Hahn that Reverend Baker described as his secretary. So just, again, like, woo! The 80s!
Yeah, it's like looking at the Sgt. Pepper album cover and trying to go like, who's that? Oh, that's Tammy Faye. There's Jessica Hahn next to her.
Yeah. There's Billy Ripken, the era card where he wrote fuckface on his bat handle. Like, that was a big deal for a week. Man.
All right, so is this, I mean, you can play Larry King and try to tell me, just try to get in the mind of Larry King and which parts he's laughing at. I'm just going to read a small section. This is the Jim Baker Holy Land.
Get it.
Which I didn't know much about, so this is, was all lost on me.
Yeah, I wasn't, anyway.
Yeah, I wasn't super familiar with it. But on Mondays, when Holy Land is closed, the Reverend rents out the lion and his tamer to a local bar for $50 a night, where they bet that nobody can beat the lion in a wrestling match. The whale is a big old mechanical... Larry? No,
sorry.
Okay. The whale is a big old mechanical whale, and it was all working pretty good till the Reverend discovered that Jonah was hiding a bunch of whiskey behind the whale's tonsils.
Yes, Jonah will do that.
Every time the whale gobbled him up, he'd run back and slug down a drink. End of the day come, Jonah's pretty drunk, and the finale arrived when Jonah commenced to give the crowd the finger just before the whale's jaws clamped shut. Reverend had to put a stop to that account as some of the mamas complained that their kids was giving the finger back.
Good stuff from Gump and Company. Tonight we have Freddy Krueger actor Robert Englund and then slugger Jose Canseco.
Right. That's exactly how it must have gone.
Yeah. It's I thought it was funny when he was like, they've got every Bible story there is. And then it goes on to describe people got to walk through some woods where a guy was dressed up like Moses, and when they got close, he set off the burning bush. Then there was a stream, too, where a little baby Moses was floating around in a plastic boat. Then there was the Red Sea party. Okay, it was pretty much just Moses land, all right? You just got a bunch of Moses attractions.
And then, so I guess this is for us. First off, they dressed me up in a big old leopard skin tunic and give me a shield and spear and pasted a big black beard on me. What I'm supposed to do is growl and roar and generally act like an asshole.
Sir, yes.
In keeping with the biblical account.
So that's David and Goliath. He is playing
Yes.
David, I guess.
Yes.
Noted asshole. No. He's Goliath. I'm sorry. David comes out wearing a set of diapers. A set of diapers. So, like Matryoshka diapers?
I guess.
And David, played by none other than John Hinckley, attempted presidential assassin and Jodie Foster obsessive. So
he's back.
If you could have, I mean, again, if you had put that in fanfic, I would have like pulled the plug on the whole endeavor here. When you told me that was real. When he's not throwing rocks at me with the slingshot, he spends all his time writing letters to Jodie Foster, who he describes as a pen pal. So I'm thinking that she might, her agent might not be returning Zemeckis' calls about the sequel here. Incredible.
So he doubles down. He wants to get another laugh about that, about writing letters to Jodie Foster?
I guess so. There's a chance he might not have remembered it. The whole Jim Baker stuff happens pretty quick, so I think it was fairly tossed off meeting Larry for drinks at Margaritaville.
Well, let's keep the theme going here. This is Forrest again, playing that character. I bent over to pick it up, and the little bastard done throwed another rock that hit me in the ass.
Incredible.
It's incredible.
Yeah. It's, like mid-aughts rapper obsession with asses.
Yes.
So he, of course, though, manages to ruin everything. I forget what happens. He trips a reverse bungee jump that Jesus was on, but he flings the guy playing Jesus up into the air.
He flings him into a fish fry pavilion.
Oh, right.
Right into a big pot of warm grease. So, I mean, obviously it was going to be hours before they could fry any fish if it was just warm. So I don't know what's happening there.
Yeah.
But
I thought that, I warm grease, I guess. I was like, oh, so the man named playing Jesus was dead, fried his ass off or third degree burns or whatever. And he was played by Sirhan. What?
The funniest book I've ever read.
And that sort of causes another panic of everybody, which results in the police. This all happens in like 2 paragraphs. They call the police. They start beating people with nightsticks. So the third honest-to-God riot of the book, the Rasslin Riot had gotten loose into the bulrushes, where he surprised the Reverend Jim Baker and Jessica Hahn, who were having some kind of relationship minus their clothes. And I said, even in the context of this book, this was fairly artless, because the whole reason Jessica Hahn became a known figure is because she accused him of raping her. So to have that sort of like yuck is maybe he had forgotten that part of the story, but brother, man.
Wow, he's giving his editorial, but we all know what really happened.
Right, yeah.
Hardy.
Off in the bulrushes. And so they come running out of things. When the police got an eyeful of this, the first thing they did was arrest the Reverend for indecent exposure. And the last thing I heard before they tossed him in the paddy wagon was, "Gump, you idiot, I'll have your head for this." And what did I look this up? I looked up Larry King, just that, he must have been yucking it up, and found this passage. In his new memoir, My Remarkable Journey, CNN personality Larry King reveals some surprising details about his private life, including an uncomfortable cab ride with church secretary turned model actress Jessica Hahn.
Wow.
King recalls that at the height of his Jim Baker scandal, he and Jessica Hahn shared a cab ride, during which Jessica Hahn made inappropriate and aggressive advances on him. He said, when he was reminiscing with Anderson Cooper, King said, situations like that don't happen often, but when they do, they don't turn him on. I have to be the pursuer, he added. It's my bowl game.
Oh.
So this must have been a real shocking moment for him reading Gump and Company to have this woman who had tried to seduce him now being the seducer.
I'm always the aggressor.
God, sir.
That's right. It's my ball game.
Your suspenders are somehow concave into your sunken chest, sir. How is that possible?
Is my head becoming more rat-like?
Oh, what a journey!
Before we end it, paddy wagon.
Yeah,
I mean, we all know what it is, but could also be a slur. I believe paddy is
for grinding up Irish drunks.
Yeah, I believe so. Yes.
My dad would talk about that. He would also say the hooskow.
Oh, I don't know the origins of that. Of course, I know it, but what do you know the origins?
No, I have no idea. But that was the paddy wagon would haul you off to the hooskow.
Gotcha. And do you know where Bedlam comes from?
No.
You know, it was Bedlam.
New Bedlam, is that a mental institute?
Bethlehem, yes. And the Cockneys would call it Bedlam.
Ha!
So it was like that place is like Bedlam. At least that's my understanding. If I'm wrong, correct me.
Yeah. Please don't. We don't need any more emails. Wow, what a journey! Just nonstop antics and fish shaking and asses with Forrest Gump.
Polished asses left and right.
Amazing. Well,
wow.
Let's read some of these emails and then so these are emails from our beloved Patreon supporters. Check them out at patreon.com/372pages. This first one's from McLean. They talked about, I forget what the dumb character name was last week that we talked about, but we talked about the joke of giving your author a purposely dumb name.
Mm-hmm. And then making comments yourself on the name.
Yes. McLean says, this is a phenomenon that was, when originally brought up on 372 pages sometime in the last 5 years, immediately reminded me of a Michael Crichton book I read in middle school a decade or more ago, A Case of Need. I remember nothing about this book other than the following page. While in a thrift store, I found a copy of the book and had to flip through it to find the section with the sole purpose of being able to send it to Mike and Connor and say, hey, look at this dumb thing. I wholeheartedly believe it the most inexcusable and egregious example of this trend. The footnote is especially appalling to me. It seems like some sort of insider knowledge that if I were a doctor, I would knowingly nod at my head while reading inclining in fashion. It was all I could do to keep from hurling the book across goodwill. And they sent a screenshot. I don't know it doesn't have the footnote, but it says, George Gall is a perfect example. After medical school, when he suffered through countless jokes and puns, he became a surgeon, specializing in liver and gallbladder disease.
Oh, God.
It was the worst thing he could do with a name like that, but he went into it with a strange, quiet certainty, as if it had all been foreordained. In a sense, perhaps it had. Years later, when the jokes began to wear very thin, he wished he could change his name, but that was impossible. So I guess it could be worse than whatever one was in Forrest Gump.
Wow. George Gall.
Here we have one from Jeff. He points out words that Gump cannot spell: shrimp, thode, toll, as in told, figure, as in figure. Words that Gump can spell: Worcester, Chesapeake, Assateague, Apalachicola, and Chincoteague. Those last four were all related to oysters.
Oh, that's very good. Well, sometimes you have that prodigy in you for certain things, right?
Exactly, yeah. Oyster names. And this last email is from Erin. She writes in and says, as one might expect, Gump and Cump has no fanfic, but the Forrest Gump movie does. I read or at least skimmed all 23 English language fics with the Forrest Gump fandom tag on Archive of Our Own so that you guys don't have to. And she compiled an index of the 23 fanfics with the synopsis, favorite quote, and rating on her 5 out of 5 shrimp scale for each one. So we will link you to her archive. And she said other people then, her favorite one was one that Thor goes to a part of his realm called Nebraska, where he then encounters Forrest Gump finds his hammer for him or something. And then someone else pointed out, the Discord Jackals pointed out there were probably more fanfics on fanfiction.net, and they were, of course, right. There are 32 Forrest Gump fanfics on there, so there's 53 in total that she has summarized on her document. She says, I'm really disappointed that not a single one of the 53 fanfics would work for Fanfic or Reel unless you think Mike would fall for Forrest appearing before St. Peter at the pearly gates after having been one of the passengers on United Flight 93. And she says she will sign off by quoting the author's note at the beginning of one of the 53 Forrest Gump fanfics. Sorry, this is so short. It could be way better. And who knows, maybe I will make it better another day. I don't know if that was written by Winston Groom himself, but it sounds like something he could have put in as a epigraph of his book.
I might have fallen for that now that I think of it.
I mean, the timeline probably wouldn't have worked. It would have to have been, Pan Am 103 or something like that from the 80s. Let's wrap it up with our dumbs and get right into it. First one is from Justin. This is just this is a sentence. Whole fleets of ships powered by shit! ! Joe submitted, I used to use this time to go down to the town and sort of ass around. He says, I guess you just can't do any real high-grade assing around in a place like Colville. Ben submitted, damn if I wouldn't, if I could, but of course I didn't say so. Account of the Reverend, he say if I don't like it, I can go back to jail. So that's one long run-on sentence. Mike T submitted, but like I say, it ain't exactly in my sphere of influence. Where did Gump learn those 3 words, or how to spell them? I might have accepted sphere-o-influenza, but not sphere of influence. Carrie submitted a simple and shit like that. Jay submitted another run-on. What is time to the Ayatollah, he said, holding his palms up in the air, and just about then one of them fellers with the baggy underpants and the swords beat twice on a huge gong, sort of like the one Mrs. Hopewell from the Coca-Cola scheme had in her rub-down room.
Wow.
Yeah, that was tough. Mike submitted, then I'd go around with a shovel and try to get as much of the pig shit as possible, which Mr. Mcgiver would sell to crop farmers for manure. He also pointed out, if they're buying it for something other than manure, I'd welcome that detail. But
okay, good.
Amanda submitted the one about trying to tickle the guy's president's nose with a feather. Harris submitted, this worked good enough, the plan of having edible trash and inedible trash files. This worked good enough till Visitors' Day at the Army base came around, and some of the mamas and daddies of the soldiers complained to the general about what their sons might be getting to eat around there. He says, everything about this feels forced. That's true of the entire book, but this sentence especially. Here we go. My one, I'll just use this one just because it's nice and hand-wavy. And so we gone on over to Iran.
That's good.
Yes.
All mine were burned.
Oh, wow. All right.
I'm looking over my notes, and yep, they're all gone. So we're all on the same page, everyone.
Good. I'm glad. Well, I think it's a pretty fun book. It's just so interesting to hear someone just burn so much goodwill to the ground and do it in such a obviously written very fast kind of way.
How many more do we have? Because how many more fanfics? Because I don't think you could get wild enough in your fanfic where I might not bite on it. I don't want to give anyone any bait to actually fool me, but I can't imagine a character as long as it's somewhere on the timeline or I wouldn't go, he might. Sure.
I think we'll probably have 3 more, I would guess.
Okay.
Probably a little shorter, but yeah.
I don't want to give tips to anyone, but I'll just let you know if you just open up the almanac for that year and see what you can find.
Yeah, I mean, because
I might bite.
Because there's obviously no plot happening. He's just going to go stumble through and meet people. So yeah, go nuts, people.
Yeah. So
all right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Get some more Patreon subs opening, and we'll drink some nasty stuff and go to a bad restaurant.
Boxcar Willie is a lizard person.
You heard it here first.
As is Robert Byrd, and Jay Leno was in jail. All right. So long, everyone.
Bye.